Canada, March 1998. For Prince William, a rock star's reception. For a shy royal teenager, an ordeal to be borne with dignity.
I gave him flowers and he shook my hand.
A year later at Highgrove, Prince Charles's home in Gloucestershire, William is behind the wheel of a borrowed car. The next day, he passed his driving test. Never short of party invitations, William has a wide circle of friends and attractive companions. But worryingly, some older friends have admitted taking drugs. 20-year-old Lord Frederick Windsor, son of Prince and Princess Michael of Kent, has admitted to using cocaine. He appeared recently as a fashion model. Tom Parker Bowles, son of Prince Charles's mistress Camilla, is another close friend.
It is embarrassing to have Tom Parker Bowles getting into problems. I mean, the royal family have had enough scrapes and scandals in the past 10 years. They don't need any more. And certainly William, who to date's been untarnished, doesn't need to be involved with people who are going to hit the headlines in the worst way.
Many of William's set are young, still at school and share his interests, unlike another group of older friends who have embarrassed the young prince. One is Tara Palmer-Tompkinson, a 27-year-old socialite who has admitted a drugs problem. Bad publicity has linked her to William.
There was a story that they were all out together in a club and Tara playfully dived on William's zipper on his trousers. I don't think she really intended to do anything at all, but she was just teasing William. However, when it's printed in the press, it doesn't look very good. It's a great pity that Diana's not still around to keep an eye on her boys, because I think she'd be appalled at what's been going on.
William faces the trials of youth without the guiding hand of his adoring mother. At the time of her death, her two young sons were only half raised to adult life.
Thank you so much.
At her funeral, they coped with the trauma of her death and the outpouring of public grief. Later, their uncle Earl Spencer, who shared their walk behind Diana's coffin, said, "My admiration for those boys is beyond bounds. It was the most amazing display of courage I'll ever see." William enjoyed an exceptionally close relationship with his mother. He was her friend and confidant. Her death sealed that bond forever. His thoughts turned to Harry, almost 13 at the time. Claims that Diana and her lover Dodi Fayed were assassinated in a Paris car crash have added to her son's grief.
Diana's death was an absolutely tragic accident. It was a basic case of drunken driving. And the Paris authorities and the Paris courts have now given their verdict on that. And it's very, very well documented. He will have gone through this time and time again. If you think that the influences of drugs and alcohol can kill, that's something which I think will sit very, very firmly in Prince William's mind. So that may indeed assist him.
In August 1999, William set off for the annual family holiday. Teenage friends were invited as companions for William and Harry. Press reports claimed that William had also invited Camilla to join the royal party aboard the yacht Alexander. Loaned by Prince Charles's friend, the Greek billionaire John Latsis, it is an ideal location for a royal family holiday, away from the prying eyes of the hungry press.
They went on holiday together last summer on a cruise through the Greek islands, so there's no doubt that as Prince Charles's companion, she would have been chiefly in charge of the boys and saying, hurry up, get ready for dinner, or, you know, the other things that mums and stepmums do. It's astounding when you think a few years ago how much Princess Diana hated Camilla, that Camilla should now be the main woman in William's life. I wouldn't say she's trying to usurp Diana's role as mother, but she's certainly become very close to William. There's no doubt she supervises arrangements when the boys are away from Eton and on holiday at Highgrove. She'd be sort of mother hen, you could say.
Charles had already publicly stepped out with his longtime mistress earlier in the year. He is determined to have her accepted as his partner, despite speculation that her presence might disrupt the lives of his sons.
mean, they are socially and privately very comfortable with each other. It's only this whole idea built up by the press, goodness gracious me, you know, the other woman, you know, what's going to happen when the poor princes meet, you know, the wicked witch from Wiltshire, which of course she isn't. So, I mean, it's all a farce. I mean, they get on extremely well together, and they encourage, I think they see that their father's very happy with Camilla, and I mean, she's quite a charming person, you know, in her own right. She's got a great sense of humour, and Camilla Parker Bowles, would know how to make boys of that age laugh, and she'd be funny and jokey with them, and so no problems there at all.
William is often seen as the great hope of the royal family, a point seemingly made by the Queen Mother on her 99th birthday. Fond of Prince Charles, she hopes that William has the charisma and stature to sustain a popular monarchy in the future. Now, at over 6 feet, William is destined to become the tallest sovereign since King Henry VIII. On Christmas morning at Sandringham, the young prince couldn't help overshadowing the rest of the royal family. Prince Charles often jokes that he is shrinking as his boys are growing. In April 1999, William, his arm in a sling after a sports injury, became a godfather to the grandson of the exiled King Constantine of Greece, a longtime friend of the royal family and a godfather himself to William. His shy, awkward charm reminds observers of the teenage Diana.
One of the problems he has is, just like Diana when she was younger, she was rather sort of clumsy when she first came on the public scene. She was tall, probably too tall, and it's awkward for him. He's looking down on most people, including his own father. But he's also he's so self-conscious and shy that in any public place, with or without the press there, he will be looking down in that very sort of Diana-ish way. And it hasn't done him any favours. His deportment is not good. He developed a bit of a stoop, and they had to talk to him about it, try and get him to, you know, look at people and smile. And you'll see that he blushes as well, like Diana always did.
William shared his godparent duties with Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden. At the Greek Orthodox ceremony, they vowed their support for baby Constantine, named after his grandfather who had lost his throne. William was at ease amongst the other young royals.
I was at the christening, and I noticed that William seemed to come out of his shell that day and do far more than we expected. Having got used to the shy William, who hangs back and, because he's so tall, hangs his head all the time to avoid being photographed, we thought that we weren't going to get much in the way of good pictures that day, but William surprised us all. He turned up and posed with the baby. I think he felt that he owed it to King Constantine, who's been a great friend of his father's, and he realised it was an important day for the young parents.
He's got that nice sort of self-effacing, very charming, easy manner about him, and he's slightly shy, which girls of a similar age like. I mean, I think that a lot of sort of teenage girls find boys of their own age rather aggressive. They're sort of into what I call the point-scoring thing, you know. And I don't think he's that at all. They like the shyness. They like the fact that, rather like his mother, he looks down sometimes when he talks to you, and he's not too boisterous.
6 months after Diana's death, Charles persuaded William to join him and Harry for a brief official visit to Canada, followed by a private skiing trip. As they were presented with souvenir outfits from the Canadian Olympic team, Charles took part in clowning around. Intended to be a relief from the period of mourning, the tour became an ordeal for William, who was mobbed by screaming teenage girls.
William could not wait to get through the crowds of screaming girls outside the school, and once he got inside, he went, "Whew, you know, I'm glad that's over." I mean, it didn't help also that Harry teased him a lot about it. We could hear him saying, "Go on, William, wave at the girls and make them scream." And there was a kind of sick kind of atmosphere. A lot of the women in the crowd were not young, they were older women, and one of them said to me, when I look at William, I want to embrace him because I feel I'm embracing Diana. And I thought that was dreadful. William must be allowed to be his own person, not a clone of his mother. And people who regard him as a kind of new generation Diana are rather sick. They're not allowing the boy a chance to be himself. And I think he wants to assert his individuality and be seen as someone in his own right, not just a new Diana.
In September 1995, William began the last stage of his school life at Eton College near Windsor. Charles and Diana were agreed on the choice of Eton. Charles had been miserable at Gordonston in Scotland, and they wanted William to have a more enjoyable schooling. At 13, William was already getting into the swing of things.
When he arrived at Eton, he had the most enormous sort of photographs of Pamela Anderson with very little on and other nudes on his walls. And I think his tutor said to him, you know, do you think maybe we could tone this down a bit, you know? So that was very interesting. So he was obviously into girls at a very early age.
The new boy found he liked the Eton regime, even wearing the traditional uniform of long tailcoat and striped trousers. He made friends with boys from a wide variety of backgrounds and progressed rapidly in his studies. Inevitably, the press thought up stories about his school days.
We all find it quite amusing reading the tabloids at breakfast, as it gives you a chance to see what is supposed to have gone on, all of which we tend to know nothing about. Often I imagine it's made up the night before when there is a shortage of actual news. I'm always amused to read that Prince William is very lucky to have his own room and everyone else stays in dormitories. Well, my experience was I was given my own room right from the start.
Founded in 1440 by King Henry VI, Eton is the most famous English public school. All the men in Diana's family had been educated there, so she was keen for William to follow in her family's tradition. Although Diana's own academic achievements were poor, she was keen for her sons to receive the best schooling. William, as a future king, needed a formal education with strong competition.
I would suspect he probably is very much on a level with his father at the same age. You see, Diana, for all her other many talents, was not blessed with a great deal of intelligence. I think she got 2 GCSEs, one of which was in domestic science, which is cooking. So no great shakes on the female side. But I mean, the Prince of Wales was always a sensible, intelligent fellow, rather than being sort of hyper-intelligent.
With the arrival of Prince William, the school had to increase its security for its most famous pupil. Accommodation had to be provided for William's personal bodyguard. The school and staff supported William through his parents' divorce and his mother's tragic death. The pastoral care at Eton is provided through the house system. William is cared for by his housemaster, Dr. Gailey, but the headmaster also takes an interest in his studies.
The parents are invited to talk to the headmaster after any chapel service at the weekends. So there is plenty of scope for the parents to talk to their headmaster. Many parents get to know throughout their child's career their housemasters very well and will often ring up, chat to the housemaster, or perhaps come to supper with the housemaster. So they're able to get a very good insight into the child's education and how the child is fitting in. There are certainly no cases I know of where the child being dumped at Eton and left to get on with it.
The choice of Eton attracted charges of elitism. Critics felt that William was being educated in an old-fashioned, class-based system, remarkable for its strange outfits and traditions. But Eton's customs, like the 4th of June, are stoutly defended by its boys.
The 4th of June is the Eton picnic, as it's often called. This is a chance for the parents to come along and see a bit of Eton. There is a cricket match going on. There is the procession of boats where the boys row down the river and wave their hats into the river to allow the flowers to float past in a wonderful procession.
William is a keen sportsman. He enjoys Eton's many activities such as soccer, rugby, tennis, water polo and rowing. He has done well academically, gaining 12 GCSEs. In September 1998, William began his A-level courses in English, Geography and History of Art. He is considering a gap year before going to university.
There's talk, isn't there, that he will go to Australia and to Argentina. I can certainly see him going to Australia without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, his father did that, and you see, Prince William is a great swimmer, like his mother. He's a hell of a good swimmer. So all that sort of surfing and, you know, Bondi Beach stuff, that will be right up his street.
William is the captain of Eton's swimming team. He has led them to victory many times, including this triathlon where his team finished 10 minutes ahead of their nearest rivals. Like many young boys from Eton, William has easy access at weekends to the busy social scene in London, where the drug culture dominates. Some people believe that children educated at boarding school, away from their parents, are more vulnerable to temptation.
I'm not at all in favour of boarding schools because that separates children from a very early age from a nurturing environment. Many of them it's not appropriate for, some of them it is, and they then find themselves in a population where everybody feels much more or less the same sort of sense of loss. And if all of them get a reasonable amount of pocket money, as most of them would do at a private school like Eton, then they have ready access to buy the drugs that would somehow make it up to them for the cut-off from the mother's love.
Within weeks of William's confirmation service in 1997, Diana was tragically killed. Like Harry, he will have to cope with that loss for the rest of his life.
There is one area which is very, very worrying, really, for the young princes, and that is bereavement. To lose a parent, either by death or divorce, but of course particularly by death, in the teenage years, predisposes you to using drugs. It is something which comes up again and again in the studies of drug addiction, that the loss of a parent is an indicator for dependency on drugs, because it does hit young people at a very, very vulnerable age.
The royal family has a disturbing history of alcohol abuse and drug addiction. Prince Charles must warn William of the dangers.
There have been more than one member of the family who's been addicted to drugs. I mean, there's the Duke of Kent, for example, King George VI's younger brother, who was well known to be addicted to cocaine. There is a history of addiction throughout both sides of the royal family, and therefore the genetic factor, the genetic loading is quite high, and he has to be aware of that, and he has to, I think, make Prince William aware of it and make him realise that it isn't something that he could do like other boys might, you know, just try a bit of marijuana or have a few more drinks at the weekend than he should. He has to be a little bit more careful than most people.
There are a lot of courtiers around him saying you can't do this and you can't do that, and his life is more restricted than many young men of his age, and so therefore the temptation to kind of break out and to have a bit of rebellion and actually, you know, to be a bit wild sometimes, that must be natural too. He really has a very difficult path, I think, ahead of him.
There's also concern for Lord Frederick Windsor, son of Prince and Princess Michael of Kent. Frederick, slightly older than his second cousins William and Harry, grew up next door at Kensington Palace. Once admired by the Queen for his exemplary manners and considered a role model for Prince William, Lord Frederick is the grandson of the late Duke of Kent, who was famed for his bohemian lifestyle. Lord Frederick, a gifted scholar at Eton, is now studying classics at Oxford University. He appeared recently on a magazine cover, making his modelling debut in the manner of a modern-day Van Dyck. His admitted drug-taking means William must be wary about family tendencies and the exhibitionist activities of some of his royal contemporaries.
he therefore has to be particularly conscious of the need to deal with any possible genetic predisposition to addiction. He must be aware of that, he must be made aware of it, because not only does he have a genetic predisposition to addiction, but he also has an environmental one, because he is a needy child. He would have to be a needy child because he comes from a broken home. He has to be a needy child because his mother wasn't always available for him, and he has to be a needy child because he would feel somehow there are other people coming between him and his mother that prevented her from giving him the love that he was entitled to have while he was growing up.
While Diana had a complicated romantic history after the breakdown of her marriage, the evidence suggests that she gave her children a great deal of attention, providing them with many opportunities for fun and adventure. Diana wanted them to have a happy childhood despite their parents' separation and divorce. She adored her boys, but confided particularly in William. She called him her anchor and recognised that he was a deep thinker.
William's quite a serious character, very interested in Shakespeare and poetry, although he does love the outdoors and he's the sort of hunting, shooting and fishing type. He's rather like his father in character, in the sense that he's quite reserved and it takes a long while to get to know him. He doesn't trust people easily, partly because of the position he's in. He can't really afford to. He's quite studious too and dutiful. In public, you certainly rarely see William show any emotion. He ducks his head a lot and he'll smile to order, but you often feel that he's making an effort just to put on a public face, and that the real William is still a bit of an enigma.
Charles has allowed William his own flat in the London home they share at St James's Palace. With his own key, William entertains his wide circle of friends. Many of these are the grown-up children of Charles's own circle. However, Tara Palmer-Tomkinson, party girl and renowned self-publicist, in spite of her immaculate connection to Prince Charles, is a definite cause for concern.
They've set up William with a lot of older friends, people to look up to, role models, I suppose they're supposed to be. But the reality is that these role models are kids older than William, much more experimental. They're not older and wiser. They're older and doing drugs, basically.
Tara, along with her sister Santa, has long been part of Charles's unofficial entourage. Caught off guard in the snow, Charles unwisely encouraged her familiarity and ignored the dangers. In April 1999, as rumours circulated about her involvement with William, Tara checked into an American drug addiction clinic. Later, she denied the gossip.
Can't imagine what any parent would have ever thought these people could do. It's totally exploitative. Why would he need a load of decadent, coke-snorting, ridiculous people who are just like Tara Palmer-Tomkinson, who's just feeding off the connection with the royal family?
It led, some say or claim, that to the banishment of Tara. She was sent off to a drug clinic in Arizona or Colorado, I think it was, and it was kind of like, clean up your act or you can't come near William ever again.
Her parents, Charles and Patty Palmer-Tomkinson, are among Prince Charles's closest friends. He helped rescue Patty when she was injured in the Cloisters avalanche in 1988. Santa, now married, behaved with dignity, but Tara exploited the royal connection.
I suppose it must be impossible to get round the freeloading situation. When the royals were much more remote, there wasn't the opportunity. But now, this generation of kids born to wealthy parents who are close to Charles, they're all in sort of banking or modelling or whatever they are. And, you know, in this commercial world of ours, it's a fantastic opportunity for them to exploit their closeness to William.
Camilla is also close to Tara's mother, Patty Palmer Tompkinson, who accompanied her to Polo in 1992 as her adulterous relationship with Charles was exposed in the press. She is said to have reunited Camilla with Charles in the mid-80s, when his marriage to Diana had deteriorated. 7 years later, scandal touched both families when Tara admitted drug-taking, as did Camilla's son Tom. Now 24 and a close friend of William, Tom was seen taking cocaine at the Cannes Film Festival.
Poor old Tom Parker Bowles has been very, very, very foolish. You know, I mean, the answer is, in our day, it was like smoking. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the answer is that smoking after lights out. I mean, everybody did it, but you don't get caught. It seems these days that absolutely everybody, I mean, drugs are absolutely everywhere. It's a really huge drug culture. And poor old Tom Parker Bowles, who's not a bad bloke. I mean, he just got a bit careless and he got caught out.
That view would not sit well with Diana. She was a very protective mother who tried to make her son streetwise over issues such as drug addiction.
It's a great pity that Diana's not still around to keep an eye on her boys, because I think she'd be appalled at what's been going on, especially the sort of scandalous behaviour of some of the people on Camilla's side and Prince Charles's friends, notably Tara Palmer Tompkinson.
It's certainly not right for him to model himself at all on people who have problems, and some of the people that we've looked at certainly have problems of addiction. It's up to him whether he looks at them as role models. They aren't his role models. He has other better role models to think about. He has his grandmother, who's a perfectly reasonable person, who's never been known to be addicted to anything other than perhaps horse racing. He's got his great-grandmother, who's a very lovable person. And I think he should be looking not only at them, but at his tutors at school, at the ordinary man in the street, at his friends, most of his friends, who behave perfectly normally. It's only very few of them, the ones that get into the newspapers, that he needs to, as it were, take a view about.
On the 29th of July 1981, the Prince of Wales, then 31, married 20-year-old Lady Diana Spencer. A group of young bridesmaids and page boys shared the magic of that day on the balcony at Buckingham Palace. One of the page boys was 8-year-old Edward Van Cutsum. He is now one of William's more respectable companions. His mother, Emily, is a longtime friend of Camilla Parker Bowles. She's often been seen with Charles and his sons.
Much closer to William are the Van Cutsum boys. Emily and Hugh Van Cutsum are rich landowners, have 3 sons who've virtually grown up with William and Harry, and they are much more respectable young men. They're not in the fast world of the showbiz world that Tom Parker Bowles lives in. They're not in the fast lane at all. And it seems that Prince Charles has decided that Edward Van Cutsum would be the perfect guide for William when he goes travelling in his gap year between school and university. William loves shooting, and he got his love of shooting from the Van Cutsum boys, who are very keen on it and have taken him many, many times on shooting on their estates and friends' estates. They've all been away together on holidays. Sometimes William has pulled out of the skiing trips with his father to go shooting with the Van Cutsum boys. I would say they are his closest friends.
Princess Anne's 2 children, Zara and Peter Phillips, are also close to William. An accomplished sportsman, Peter, now 22, is studying sports science at Exeter University.
Peter Phillips is a role model and has been probably for all of William's life, and they seem to have got it right with him anyway, because he is a big, healthy, no-nonsense kind of guy who's very good shot, good horseman, plays rugby. You know, he's rough and tough. He doesn't seem to have any airs and graces, and he's been pretty brilliant with William, and that seems to be a good choice and a natural choice. You would look up to your cousin. He's big and beefy, and he's got the blonde looks. It's all a very sort of close family thing
When he was much smaller, William absolutely hero-worshipped Peter Phillips. Peter taught him to play cricket, and they spent all their summer holidays together. Very often, when Princess Anne went back to work in the new year, Peter and Zara would stay on at Sandringham with William and Harry, and Diana would look after all four of them, help them build snowmen and, you know, just generally give them a good time. So they're very, very close. I'd say more like brothers than cousins. And it was noticeable when Diana died. And William made his first public appearance when he went out to look at all the bouquets and cards at Balmoral Castle. Peter Phillips was right there behind him, lending him moral support.
The tragedy is that Diana is not here to see the mature way in which William and Harry have coped with their own emotional trauma. She would have been proud of her boys. At Diana's funeral, her brother Earl Spencer vowed to protect his nephews.
Your boundless energy, which you could barely. My own and only explanation is that genuine goodness is threatening to those at the opposite end of the moral
Well,
spectrum.
Charles Spencer made that amazing speech at Diana's funeral, promising to stay close to Diana's boys and give them the things that the royal family couldn't, which is a very controversial speech. They're not exactly madly close, but they do see each other and stay in touch.
Sadly, William and Harry see little these days of their young cousins, Princess Eugenie and Beatrice, daughters of Sarah, Duchess of York, now effectively banned from royal circles since her divorce from the Duke of York. Sarah says that senior members of the royal family, such as Prince Charles, regard her as pointless. This has led to a distancing of the two families that were once very close. In the past, they shared holidays together, such as this ski trip in 1995 to Cloisters, Charles's favourite ski resort. When 4-year-old Eugenie fell into the deep snow, her 12-year-old cousin William was close at hand. This is one of the few occasions when he has readily taken part in a photo call.
How are you enjoying your holidays together? You're enjoying it? It's good. Good fun.
You can turn this way slightly. Maybe this.
Well, improving, you see, very good.
You're improving?
Very good skills.
Richard, sorry, could you ask round here? Sorry. Behind us. Rob, sorry, they're not looking at your side. Sorry. Do you think... Can we do something? Just want the two boys to put the skis down. You think you just...
Yes, it'll be good fun. It'll be very good. Enjoy it.
Can you look? This way?
You're right, usually. Beatrice?
Nice and close together if you can, please.
Both the Queen and the Queen Mother have taken a close interest in William's upbringing. He grew up a thoughtful, courteous boy, ready to help others without prompting. Although Diana had difficult relationships with the royal family, she knew that William had to be taught by them for his future role.
The Queen has made certain that she spends a lot of time with William, especially on Sunday afternoons when he goes to see her for tea. She can kind of give him a very subtle training in the art of kingmanship. They discuss more serious topics, and she can explain to him what it's like to have a life filled with, you know, eternal boxes from the government that you have to look through, and what it's like to be in that position, that the privileges must be paid for. She realises the problems that he's got confronting his destiny and also living in the spotlight. So I think she's trying to help him adjust to that.
Harry is being raised as a backup for William to help him through a lifetime of duties. From his birth in June 1982, William has been a world celebrity. Every major event from his christening to his first tentative crawlabout has been captured by cameras. The flashbulb of fame has marked every milestone of his infancy, his school days, sad family events and happy ones. Everywhere he looked, pressmen with their inquisitive long lenses were there. Even on private holidays, there was no escape. He came to dislike the constant intrusions. Diana sometimes pleaded with the press to leave her sons alone. William, far more than Harry, became camera shy, hiding his face from the paparazzi photographers who hounded Diana and her sons.
Now, I once said to Diana, William doesn't like being photographed. She said, oh no, he hates it. And I said, well, it seems to me life will be a lot easier for him as soon as he learns to live with it. And she said, I think you're being very hard. And I said, well, maybe, but what are princes for? They're for being photographed. That's all they are. They're symbols. They don't actually do or achieve very much. And I think William hasn't yet come to terms with that.
At Eton, William is grateful for being one of the crowd. His friends recognise his need for privacy and shield him from the press.
Well, I'm told the only time that Prince William uses foul language, four-letter words, is when he either reads about himself or sees photographs of himself or the physical presence of photographers.
The problem with William is he's too good-looking for his own good. And as there are no other young, attractive people coming up rapidly in the royal ranks, William's the natural successor to Diana. And as he has a kind of very ambivalent attitude to the media, life's going to be very difficult for him. Diana, I think, brainwashed him to dislike being photographed, being scrutinised. He saw the problems she went through. He didn't see the other side of it, that she used the media for her benefit. And he is not at a stage yet where he can do that.
Sometimes Diana had to be rescued by her bodyguard from scuffles and squabbles with pressmen. William dreaded these confrontations. At this stage, he had no idea that Diana also had a secret life. Later, he learned the truth about her lovers such as James Hewitt, whom he saw just as a family friend. In November 1995, Diana gave a television interview. She admitted adultery with Hewitt, accused Camilla of being the third person in her marriage, and questioned Charles's suitability for the throne, hinting that William would make a much better king and should succeed the Queen.
I've always thought that Diana laid too much responsibility on William and treated him as a sort of alternative husband. She confided in him too much about her problems, her romantic life. William coped with it very well. It probably helped to mature him very rapidly, but it shouldn't have happened to him. And I think part of that is the reason he hates the press. He feels that if the paparazzi hadn't always been pursuing his mother and she and Dodie hadn't been concerned that the press might be on their tail, perhaps they might have driven more slowly through Paris and they'd be alive today.
Whitewater rafting was one of the outdoor activities Diana's sons experienced in contrast to the more traditional forms of royal pastimes like hunting, shooting and fishing. At home, she took them go-karting, and on holiday in Colorado in 1995, she allowed them to ride quad bikes despite protestations from their father. Since her death, William and Harry have not repeated this type of holiday. William is Harry's protector, especially since he joined him at Eton in 1998. Harry is the tearaway of the family, William the quieter and more thoughtful one.
He doesn't mother Harry, and I don't think Harry needs mothering either. I mean, Harry's going to be quite a little tiger. Harry's going to be different from William, but I mean, Harry's going to be quite a little tiger in his own right, I think.
Tiggy Legg Burke, their former nanny, has helped William and Harry cope with the shock of their mother's death. She joined Charles's staff in 1993 when he shared custody of the boys with Diana. Sporty and adventurous, Tiggy became a vital part of their lives, but was criticised for allowing them to take part in some dangerous activities, such as abseiling down the side of a dam without protective headgear. Charles was reportedly horrified.
She let them do some harem-scarum things. I wouldn't say she exactly introduced them to the downside of life. She'd take them to the movies, to restaurants. But it was Diana who felt that the boys should have a slow introduction to people who are less lucky than they are.
I would think the real world to Prince William was brought home to him definitely by his mother, the various little trips that they did make, the visit to Centre Point, seeing how homeless people were struggled and coped with life, AIDS victims, this and that and the other. I would suspect that that would have made a very major impression on him at an impressionable age. You know, how old was he when that was going on? He was sort of 14 or 15, so I would think, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. And probably what's making him into a nice rounded boy. I think the hardest thing for any member of the royal family is that they live in this sort of, in this glass house. They're sort of cocooned, and they don't really understand too much about not necessarily how the other half lives, but how, you know, how the other 98% of the world lives.
One of Charles's favourite sports is polo. He was an enthusiastic player until injuries limited his performance. He rarely plays now, but would like to see his boys take up the game.
Well, there's no doubt about it that the Prince of Wales would love both his sons to become polo players. I mean, it's a brilliant game anyway. I mean, it is somebody said to me, what a lovely way to have a sweat, and it is, really. It's sort of, I mean, riding horses, the involvement with horses. You've got none of the problems you've got with fox hunting and, you know, the blood sports angle. You're sitting on a horse, hitting a ball, and you've got a nice degree of physical contact with the riding off and you know, the hooking of the sticks. It's a good, strong, manly game, and apart from the fact it's bloody good fun.
Reluctantly, Diana took her boys to watch Charles on the polo field. She found the game boring, like most of her husband's interests, but realised that her sons felt differently. They enjoyed the whole polo experience. William has gone on to take lessons himself. He now owns his own polo pony and has a real aptitude for the sport.
William and Harry have been given sort of private lessons, sort of not quite behind closed doors, but without anybody watching them. And both of them enjoy the game. The problem, the major problem that William is going to have, of course, is he's left-handed. And, of course, there are no left-handed polo players in the world. You know, when you line up, you've got to line up right hand to right hand, which is quite obvious, because otherwise people would kill each other. What you're talking about in polo is swinging the stick. You've got to get that whole swing and the swing of the shoulders. So he is going to have to switch his whole body balance from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. That'll be difficult for him.
Princes are expected to have a military career. Charles was in the Navy, but William has shown an interest in the army.
He's doing very, very well in the combined cadet force at Eton. I understand that he won the Sash of Honour last year, which was for the most outstanding sort of young cadet, soldier cadet of his year at Eton. So that's a big thing. He's going to be a soldier prince. And there's this big talk, and I'm sure this is right, that he's going to go into the Welsh Guards. That will be obvious, because when his father becomes king, he will be the next Prince of Wales, so he'd have to go in the Welsh Guards. So that would make a lot of sense. Good regiment, nice regiment.
Doubts have grown about William's acceptance of a burden thrust on him by fate alone. Given a choice, he would probably avoid any of this and settle for anonymity. All his life he has been groomed for some distant day when he will become King William V, but he may long for a different destiny.
William seems reluctant to take the spotlight, and inevitably one day he will be, you know, the main man in the royal family, and he'll have to spend his life in the spotlight. He seems to dread it. The palace officials seem to think it's a stage he's going through. I'm not so sure. I think big problems lie ahead. Another abdication would be probably finish off the House of Windsor. I think it's really unfair to say to a young man of William's age sorry, you can't be a rocket scientist or a drummer in a rock band, you've got to be a king. In this democratic age, no other young man is forced to go into his father's firm. William has no choice, and it's a very daunting prospect. He's got to be king, and that very idea that he hasn't any choice is probably very bitter to a boy of his age.
William's position as heir in line to the throne is so special that, unlike Harry, he is not allowed to travel by plane with his father. In the summer of 1999, accompanied by friends, they flew out separately for their cruise around the Greek islands. A selection of attractive, well-bred, aristocratic young women provided company for William. Amelia Darlinger, daughter of a rich Dorset landowner, was among them, as was Davina Duckworth-Chadd, also known as the Deb on the web after she appeared on the internet.
The process of finding him a sort of life partner is all going on. I don't know if he's aware of just how much this subject's thought through and talked over, and there's a determination that, you know, that whole establishment thing that they always used to do, trying to introduce royalty to royalty, so bring in a few European princesses. I mean, they've abandoned that, but they also don't want another Diana or Fergie on the scene.
I'm sure he will enjoy a close relationship with a woman, but what sort of woman are we talking about? Is he going to choose a woman like his mother, a woman who isn't going to be there for him all the time? Or is he going to be exactly the opposite? Is he going to try and find somebody who's nothing like his mother, somebody who's going to be always there, somebody who's going to be entirely faithful, someone who is not going to have other relationships other than the one with him?
I wouldn't be at all surprised if William ended up with some rather dowdy girl who wasn't another Diana. That's what we'd all like to see him with. But I think he'll be going for something safe and loving rather than someone dazzling, because, you know, the problem, one of the great problems between Charles and Diana was that she outshone him. And William will have to use his head as much as his heart when he finds a wife.
William's association with unsuitable companions and his recent attraction to London nightclubs worries the royal family. They hope that with maturity he will distance himself from bad influences. And they know that William has a deep love of the peace and tranquility found on the royal estates.
William's happiest, really, in the countryside. He adores Scotland, he adores Balmoral, and although he's not a loner, I suppose when your life's crowded like his, you probably do relish moments alone, and he's got a hell of a lot to think about, more than most human beings.
William's relationship with his father is all important. He knows that he and Harry and Charles must all support each other in the years ahead.
I think he's now getting on with things and realising that his father's never been happier. And although, you know, he misses his mother, there's nothing he can do about it, and he's just got to ensure now that he does what he can to help his father.
He's got all his mother's charm, he's got his mother's, you know, apparent good looks, and the world is his oyster right now.
When Prince William passed out from Sandhurst Military Academy as 2nd Lieutenant Wales, his future seemed assured. Looking on was the woman dubbed William's Princess, Kate Middleton. A regular fixture at polo matches and London's nightclubs, Kate appeared a permanent fixture in William's life. Mature, dignified, and most of all discreet, she was hailed as the perfect girl for the world's most eligible bachelor. But it wasn't to be. Amid speculation they would wed, in April 2007 came shocking news. William and Kate had split. The news was an abrupt end to a 4-year romance, one which had enchanted the world. In a rare moment of indiscretion, Kate pointed the finger of blame at an unlikely source. In an eerie reminder of the ultimatum laid down by Prince Philip to his son before he wed Diana, Prince Charles had reportedly told William, marry Kate or let her go. Relationship problems weren't only confined to William. The hard-drinking, high-living Prince Harry is a headline writer's dream. Training with his regiment in Canada, Harry drunkenly chatted up barmaids during a late-night visit to the Cowboys bar. It was just the latest indiscretion from a prince who'd previously visited a strip club and been linked to a string of women, despite being in a long-distance relationship with Chelsea Davy. Despite his good works at an orphanage in Lesotho, Harry's antics frequently made for front-page news. Banned from serving in Iraq, but not yet a fully fledged working royal, Harry gives the impression of a prince whose life is without direction. His bad behaviour threatened to overshadow commemorations marking the 10th anniversary of a woman he loved more than any other, Diana. In a rare interview, the princess's son spoke of their love for their mother. Harry remembered Diana as a happy, fun, bubbly person who cared for so many people. She's very much missed by not only us, but by a lot of people. Upset by the negative reporting of her life, William recalled the amazing Diana, saying, "We were so lucky to have her as our mother, and there's not a day that goes past when we don't think about her and miss her influence, because she was a massive example to both of us." Unfortunately, William and Harry are faced with the kind of media scrutiny which destroyed their mother's life. Although aides denied he was drunk, Harry came under further criticism when it was alleged he attacked photographers outside a nightclub in 2007. It wasn't the first time. After a night out on the town for Harry, built-up pressure exploded in an angry scuffle with photographers.
Something obviously happened to trigger him, because the fact was Harry left, got into the car, and something happened that made him get back out and react.
For the newspapers, it was a good story.
I really feel it wasn't very royal behaviour, but you can completely understand why Harry did it. He was just pushed too far. Friends like society girl Tara Palmer Tompkinson have had their drug habits revealed by the media. Tom Parker Bowles, son of Camilla, also took drugs.
Ever since the newspapers broke the story about his cocaine habits, there has been, I think, a deliberate effort to ostracise Tom Parker Bowles on the Prince's behalf, which must have been a very difficult decision for Charles to make, because, of course, Tom is one of Charles's godsons.
The two young princes really looked up to Tom Parker Bowles, who'd had his own problems with drugs, and they loved Tara Palmer Tompkinson. I don't think they had a bad influence on them, because I think it wasn't just them. I think it's, unfortunately, very much within society today at all levels.
William and Harry have never forgiven the more aggressive and intrusive paparazzi for harassing their mother.
And of course, after her death, you can imagine that they really think that they're a load of scumbags.
The British press agreed to let Prince William complete his schooling in peace. Afterwards, he thanked them at Highgrove, his father's home.
I was a bit anxious about how everything was going to turn out, but thanks to everyone, it really has been brilliant. You've all left me alone at the beginning. The whole of Eton made a real big difference with everyone not trying to sort of snap a picture every time I was walking around the streets, and I hope it just continues for Harry as well while he's there.
When William became a student at St Andrews University in Scotland, the press recorded his arrival, then agreed to leave him alone. But the public still clamoured for information about his life and about the type of girls the most eligible bachelor in the world would date. Well-bred girls were linked with William, and the hunt was on to find his secret girlfriends. What sort of girl does William really like?
He is into quite independent, quite feisty women. That's what he likes. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did go for that sort of woman.
But university life was not quite what he expected. He had to be persuaded to stay on.
I think it took William a long time to settle down in St Andrews, and he didn't want to join all the clubs and do a lot of the things that went on because he didn't want to let people down at the last minute.
William's History of Art course proved less rewarding than he had expected, and he switched to geography after his first unsettled year. The change was an indication that William was exerting his authority.
I really do want to be in control of my own life, and you know, if I don't agree with what someone's saying or someone's pushing on me, then I won't do it. If I'm wrong and they're right and people tell me that, then obviously I'll change my mind. You know, I'm always open for people saying, you know, I'm wrong, because most of the time I am. But you know, I hate losing control. I think it's very important to you know, see what you want to do and go for it. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Secretly, I'm a really good pool player.
Away from the pool table at university, William joined his friends with their surfboard on a nearby beach. A handsome and athletic young man, he makes waves as well as surfs them, keeping him on the front pages.
I don't think the press will ever leave William alone. I mean, fortunately, he has the good looks of his mother, and he's a very, very attractive young man.
A skiing holiday confirmed speculation that fellow student and flatmate Kate Middleton was William's girlfriend.
Kate Middleton was first photographed and came to everybody's attention when she strutted down the catwalk in a very flimsy, see-through chiffon dress with just her underwear underneath, and the prince had paid at least £200 for the privilege of being in the front row.
Behind his public image of restraint, William is just as much a party animal as Harry. The difference is the more astute William knows how to keep his private life and loves private.
He's not going to want to be pinned down to one woman, and very much as I'm sure Harry has, I think William has a string of very beautiful women in every corner of the globe.
Following his split from Kate, the media led the hunt for William's future queen. It was cruelly suggested Kate's former air steward parents were too middle class for the House of Windsor. Some of Britain's most beautiful women were immediately hailed as suitable royal brides, even those who weren't on the market for a new boyfriend. William had reportedly chased, but failed, to seduce the aristocratically titled Isabella Anstruther Gough Calthorpe. Holly Branson, the daughter of Virgin tycoon Sir Richard, also entered the headlines as a suitable bride. Even chart-topping singer Joss Stone was linked to William after they struck up a telephone friendship. The prince had invited Joss to sing at the Concert for Diana, an event organised by her sons in memory of the princess's life. But the man who said he won't wed until he's at least 28 is, for now, simply happy to continue the search. A second lieutenant in the Blues and Royals of the Household Cavalry, William splits his life between army training bases and his father's homes of Highgrove and Clarence House. But it's in the countryside that William is at his happiest.
He still likes to run for the hills, literally, because he can run to his own little house on the Balmoral estate whenever he wants to.
The Queen's estate is set in the peaceful and scenic Scottish Highlands. Nestled in the valley of the River Dee, Balmoral Castle has belonged to the royal family for over 150 years.
The Queen bought a small house on the Balmoral estate for William, the purpose of which was for it to be a bolt hole for him so that he could escape when he was at St Andrews. It's not a massive place, but it's very tucked away, it's very private, and William likes nothing more than to take a group of friends to the house and indulge in a weekend of shooting.
Flickering images of King Edward VII, the Queen's great-grandfather, taken a century ago at Balmoral, show a long tradition of royal shoots. And at Balmoral, William can enjoy its seclusion and forget about his destiny.
I think William would rather do anything than address the reality of his position, but he knows he has to. But he does love Scotland, and he does love shooting. Diana said herself, you know, they are never happier than when they got a gun in their hands.
William has inherited his father's love of the countryside. He's interested in farming and doesn't hesitate to help out on the Duchy of Cornwall estate. One day, all of this will be his.
He himself has spoken of his passion for the countryside and all associated issues. He spent time on the Duchy estate. He obviously has a passion for farming, environmental issues, very much like his father.
But his destiny lies elsewhere. With Harry denied his wish to fight in Iraq, Royal Heir William knows he'll never be allowed to serve alongside his troops. Instead, the next stage of his life beckons, one which will see him quit the army for national service of a very different kind. Service to his people. It's a destiny of which he has been aware since his earliest days.
On St David's Day in Cardiff in 1991, 9-year-old William was presented to the people of Wales. Here began his journey along the road to his destiny. Both his parents were there to guide the uncertain child. The man who worked with the princess for 8 years was Diana's private secretary, Patrick Jeffson. Her closest advisor, he saw how skillfully she groomed William for kingship as she introduced the young prince to the Welsh people.
It was, of course, most memorable because it was Prince William's first real public engagement, I think, certainly his first public walkabout. And the pictures show what a great success he made of it. And I'd add that one of the reasons he made such a success of it was that his mother is an Olympic-class coach at the art of the walkabout, and she coached him through it every step of the way. And I've got to say, he did her proud.
The young prince was learning how to behave like a royal. Even signing his name in his childish scrawl was an historic event. Prince Harry soon joined his more accomplished brother on royal walkabouts.
In training William and Harry for what was going to be a pretty unenviable career, as she saw it, she was very keen to make sure that they were prepared for the attentions of the media. She was quite sophisticated enough to realize that the royal family without media interest is useless, that the royal family depends on media interest, preferably friendly and constructive media interest. And to get the friendly and constructive, it has to learn to endure the less friendly. The press were going to be a permanent part of their lives, for better or worse, and it might as well be for better. And she had to teach them that the press could be friendly, but that the press would never be their friends. Because, as we all know, the press sells newspapers by building people up one day and knocking them down the next.
Often separated by royal duties, Diana always reassured her children of her love for them.
She was very keen that whatever other problems the children had to endure, they would never be in any doubt about their mother's love for them. I think she was a very expressive mother. She loved her children very much, and she wasn't ashamed of showing it. I mean, bearing in mind her own childhood and the fact that the royal family traditionally does not express its emotions very much, I think that she took a real pleasure in expressing her love for her children.
Many weekends were spent at Highgrove, the family's country home. It was here that the princess tried to create a normal life for her children, away from the public gaze. One person who saw that family life at first hand was her bodyguard, Ken Wharf.
When I first met the princess in '86, I had, reservations about what this family was going to be like.
And they were rather nervous at this prospect. And I wasn't aware at that time that William, this one, was standing on a piano stool nearby, de-stamening these lilies. And the princess said to me, without any further introduction, she says, I don't envy you looking after my children, they can be a bloody nuisance. At which point William says, no, I'm not like that at all. And I thought, hang on a minute, I've really got a real life family here.
William and Harry went on a Caribbean holiday to Necker Island, a billionaire's private paradise, with their cousins and Diana's mother Frances. Ensuring their privacy and security was the job of Ken Wharf, suitably dressed for the occasion.
Within 2 or 3 days of our arrival at Necker, you know, there were 80, 90 members of the world's media ascended on Byrus Creek. James Whittaker acted as you like the sort of the colonel-in-chief of the Rat Pack.
They pretended then that we weren't there. I mean, there was no looking, there was no posing, because she always said, I won't pose up for pictures, particularly with the children. So they then got on the beach, all of them, and they were playing sandcastle, generally fooling around on the beach. We were some way off, about 50 or 100 metres away, I would guess, trying to keep the boat as steady as possible because it was going up and down like that. And then I suppose we had 10, 12 minutes of taking photographs of them on the beach.
Get rid of this boat.
The royal party were in playful mood. Unknown to the photographers, William decided to play a practical joke on them as a penalty for invading their privacy.
He brought back 2 huge elastic catapults. And William saw this catapult and said, he said, I've got a really good idea for those. He said, what we can do is we can blow up the balloons and fill them in water, and then we can catapult them at the photographers. And I said, hey, hang on a minute, you better speak to your mother about this. And the princess came and said, Ken, she said, I think it's a great idea. She said, it'll be a great bit of fun, won't it?
Get rid of this boat.
And as the press were assembled, William gave this word to release these cannonballs. And I think James Whittaker took a direct hit on the chest.
They were naughty young boys, so in their sort of childish way, they wanted to pelt us because they knew that Mummy and Daddy found us a bit of a menace. In the old days, of course, they would have had us ordered into the stocks and our feet would have been tied and they would have pelted us with rotten eggs and water.
Lech, Austria, and the massed, noisy ranks of the foreign press were waiting for the princess and her children. Ken Wharf, in his orange ski suit, had to defend his charges with more tenacity than usual. This was not easy in a ski resort which is public territory. Ken organised a photo call to give the royal party some peace. Acting as unofficial press secretary, he satisfied the British media with this arrangement. But some of the bolder elements of the world's press could still be difficult.
Can we go back in that, please? Let's go back.
We attracted the usual group of paparazzi, and I say paparazzi as distinct from, you know, your Fleet Street trader. And this particular Italian, as it so happened, wanted to interview William, and I said, look, I'm sorry, he doesn't give interviews, he's a young boy. And he was persisting, and I just then politely took hold of his collar and planted him in a snowdrift just to the left. Much the annoyance, the fun of Harry, who's turned and said, oh, good Ken, he said, do it again.
And there was this wonderful moment, he didn't punch him or anything, but the next thing, he ended up on his bum on the floor in the ice. He had decked him.
Then this guy got up and ran towards me. My colleague said, watch your back, as this guy tried to lay a punch on me. Well, of course, I naturally defended myself, and the great shot was me defending, or shall I say, fighting with this paparazzi, which was wrong with hindsight.
Then Ken just gave the word, right, back. They turned round and they went back into their hotel, the Arlberg.
Later, a photo call was arranged to give the press greater access to William and Harry and their young cousins, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, daughters of the Duke and Duchess of York. It was William's first press conference.
and Harry in as well, nice and tight together. That's it. Good look here, please.
Morning,
Thank you very
morning,
much.
William. How are you enjoying your holidays together?
Fine, thanks.
Enjoying it? It's good.
Fun.
Good fun.
Improving these two, very good.
They're improving.
Very good skiers.
Richard, sorry, could you ask round here? Sorry.
Ask a question behind us.
Rob, we
Sorry.
very much.
William, do you hope to have a ski together at some stage?
Yes, it'll be good fun. It'll be very good. Enjoy it.
One more minute and we'll call it off. Thanks.
Can you look this way? Hello. This one, kiss us,
You're right, usually. Beatrice, you're right?
Hello.
Do you think... Can we do something different?
The two boys put the skis down. You think you just bend down on...
Right. Could you look at this camera, please? Just at this one. I've got a...
Yeah, in the middle.
Thank you very much.
Here, can you just...
Diana wanted to relax with her children on holiday. She was happy to trade a few minutes of organised access in exchange for peace the rest of the time. If that agreement was breached, she was ready to complain. When she spotted Mike Lloyd, a freelance cameraman, continuing to film, it brought out her protective instincts. This time she would confront the culprit herself. A princess on the warpath was an awesome sight.
Excuse me. As a parent, could I ask you to respect my children's space?
Yes, sir. Yes. No problem at all.
Because I brought the children out here for a holiday,
Right.
and we'd really appreciate the space. We've had 15 cameras following us today.
I haven't been one of those.
No, but as a parent, I want to protect the children.
Even when I used to say, look, guys, time's up, let's call it a day, there'd always be the odd one or two that would linger for that different shot, because up until that point, they've all got the same picture. But I think Diana, at this particular point, had seen Mike Lloyd's camera rolling and thought, well, look, the only best way to stop this is just to put my hand in front of the camera, which seems to be something that's done now with other media celebrities. I think it's a bog standard way of saying, I've had enough.
As a child, Prince Harry seemed oblivious to the cameras. William frequently turned away. Inwardly, they both hated the attention.
They saw what photographers did to their mother. I mean, it's when you see a picture of Diana walking down the street, you think she's all alone, but in fact she's got 30 photographers running backwards in front of her to get the picture. The boys witnessed that, and they knew it made her unhappy.
There were other times when Diana herself might have tipped off the media. This was to convey the message that Charles was absent from happy family outings, such as their visit to Thorpe Park.
Oh, God!
He's actually won.
Whenever we went anywhere with the children, it was a foregone conclusion that the media would turn up. But the princess, by now, of course, was getting rather used to all this. These were happy pictures of her enjoying fun with her children. And in Diana's case here, I don't think even she would complain about the quality of pictures.
I knew that, to an extent, both Charles and Diana used the boys to score points off each other during their divorce. It would have been incredible if they hadn't. And I'm not saying this was done maliciously or with great calculation, but inevitably, given the very overheated and rather antagonistic atmosphere between the mother and father, and given the fact that they both had very demanding schedules, it was inevitable that sooner or later, who had the children when and for what purpose was going to become a factor. And in that respect, they were no different, I'm sure, from many, many other divorcing couples.
The boys had limited access to their royal grandparents, seeing the Queen mostly for Christmas at Sandringham and for Easter at Windsor.
When I was younger, I'd spend a hell of a lot of time with my grandparents because they were very busy, and I was probably a very annoying little plonker when I was younger. But it's been, I've got to know them much better. now in the last few years and become very close to them, and I really look up to them.
The daily journey to school was one way Diana made sure that she had the greatest influence on her children's upbringing.
Their mother was crucial to their lives in those early days, because Diana was the one that was responsible effectively for their education. I mean, remember when Harry and William both started school in North London, there wasn't a day that went by where Diana wouldn't take them to school personally and would organise her diary around the fact that she had to be at school at 8:30, 8:45 in the morning.
She also had to teach them the protocol expected of them when appearing with the royal family, but Princess Diana's child-rearing methods were the very opposite of royal tradition.
The Queen was used to the more old-fashioned ways of children are seen and not heard, which was very much how she was brought up and very much how Prince Charles was brought up. But Diana hated the way Prince Charles was brought up. She blamed what she called his anal retentiveness on his upbringing she felt there was no substitute for a mother's arms and he was always in his nanny's arms.
Prince Charles was sent to Cheam, an English boarding school, at 8. This momentous occasion had to be shown to the public. At 13, he went to Gordonston in Scotland, where he felt isolated and unhappy. At the same age, William joined Eton College near Windsor. The event was filmed and broadcast, making him an exception among his fellow pupils. But setting him apart in this way had its drawbacks. Not all his schoolmates were impressed.
When William started at Eton, he was teased, he was probably bullied a bit, and it was just a very difficult period for him. And it's not an intimate little school. There are over 1,200 pupils there, and they are not all going to be nice to William because he's a prince of the realm. They don't care. They're all quite grand there.
William showed skill at drawing. He became interested in art and studied it through to university. Rowing was among the many sports in which he participated. Like his mother, he was an excellent swimmer and became captain of the swimming team. William grew more confident at school and made friends, but inwardly he was upset by publicity surrounding his parents.
I think William did become skilled at hiding his feelings. I think he became quite introverted and withdrawn during the really difficult days of his parents' marriage, and he would lock himself in the loo and just not come out.
The boys had to join their estranged parents on official occasions like Victory in Europe Day celebrations in 1995.
Children want their parents to be happy because it makes their life happy. And I think before the separation was announced, there'd been so many fights and so many rows, which of course the children were aware of even if they hadn't witnessed them. So when Diana finally accepted that there was no way forward except a separation, I think it was a relief to everyone.
The death of Diana in 1997, following a car crash in Paris, caused mourning on an unprecedented scale. Harry, still 12, needed his father's support while looking at tributes left at the gates of Balmoral. William, 15, sought the Queen's comfort. Few grieving children have ever been exposed to such intrusion, but as royal heirs, they had been groomed by Diana for every kind of public duty.
She took very seriously the fact that her children were born to one day hold, the top offices of state. What she was doing was giving her children a set of tools with which they could form their own judgments about how they were going to do their jobs when the time came.
In 1998, William, Harry and Charles made a visit to Canada. With his film star looks, William enjoyed a fanatical reception. He easily outshone his father and brother. Two years later, the grown-up prince, now 18 and taller than his father, faced the press at Highgrove to announce his gap year plans.
I wanted to do something constructive in my gap year, rather than, I could do quite a lot of work, but I thought this was a bit more of a way of trying to help people out and meet a whole range of other different people from different countries, and at the same time helping people in remote areas of Chile.
William went to Chile for 10 weeks with Rally International, a volunteer group, ready to live and work together in primitive conditions. He took his turn with the chores.
You just be aware what time it is. Got up at 6:15. It's far too early. Now I'm going to feed it to my father till he's sick, so you can see what we went through. I'm so embarrassed about it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might shoot myself this afternoon, right? Yeah, try it first, then come back and want some more. I doubt you will. No, that's the worst porridge I've ever tasted in my life. That is absolutely hideous. Oh, that is foul. Oh. We're living in an old nursery. It has got a vague carpet. It's got a roof over our heads, which is more than what we've had. Sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag with about 16 other people all cramped together underneath a slide or a climbing frame or something. With one bathroom. It's all you need, really. You don't have any secrets in Rally. You share everything with everyone. And that's why I found it very difficult myself to start with, because I'm a very private person, and I still am a private person, but I learned to deal with it more. The problem is you can't go anywhere here to get spaceful privacy. There's always someone around you, you have to be with people, and it's very difficult to get away for your own time. So that's one thing I had to learn to deal with.
Marie was William's team leader, and he followed her orders, taking his turn on the cleaning rota.
Yeah, Marie, she's so canny as anything. She knows where her bread's buttered, doesn't she? That's all right, well, you go and do this. No, Marie, don't worry about it, I'll do it then. Marigolds are now officially a fashion item. I think I get along with these guys so well as well. They will come out here to join rallies, to gain their experience and to gain a bit of knowledge about other parts of the world. And we all get along so well because I hope I don't come across as someone who's, that I was trying to be treated differently by the staff or anything. They all treat me the same. The locals treat me the same. And I love having no restrictions,
William helped out in a local nursery, displaying the same easy rapport with children as his mother had. He also kept in touch with Harry by writing frequent postcards home. The Prince, known there as Will, stood in as a disc jockey at a local radio station.
Just want to say there, boys. There's big ups to Ruthie. We love you, babe. I hear you listening. A few extra listeners out there. And for any of you people who are in a bit of a mood for love, this song is for you.
I think William's trip to Chile was extremely good for him. He came out of it a much more grown-up, levelled human being.
Now the father of 2 adult sons, Prince Charles continues his own life and interests, refusing to bow to criticism of his outdated and quaint lifestyle. William and Harry are understanding and adopt a gentler approach.
They have a great relationship with their father now. They tease him about being an old fuddy-duddy and having old-fashioned ideas, and they bring him into the 21st century too, so they have a lovely relationship with him.
Reports of Harry's drink and drugs problems and his rowdy behaviour have caused problems for Charles, a single parent.
The minute Diana died, he took control, and people criticise Charles now for saying he's not doing enough. How can he let Harry fall out of nightclubs at 3 o'clock in the morning? But you can't control a 20-year-old boy. He's a man.
Harry is a problem, but with greater maturity, William has grown to appreciate his father's charitable work. William is protective of Charles and defends him against attacks.
He's had a difficult time, and it's just sad. I said this last time, I'm sure I'll use the same words, but I just wish more of his charitable work was concentrated on, because he does do a hell of a lot of work, and the Prince's Trust is just an amazing organisation, and I really hold him in great admiration about the amount of time he gives up to do work here and there.
Despite their different personalities, William and Harry are close.
There's very little age gap between us, so we're both pretty similar in that sense, and we get along, really well. Harry and I and my father, we're a very close family. There are disagreements, obviously, as all families do, and when they are, they're big disagreements. But when there's happy times, we have really good time. It's just it's difficult getting all 3 of us in the same house at one point, because obviously father's really busy, Harry's travelling or wherever, and I'm up here.
On the polo field, there's companionship between the brothers, but there's also rivalry. This is the one area where Harry outranks William.
Harry is the better polo player because Harry is the better sportsman, and he is the better rider. And I think that irritates William. But they have a lot of friendly banter when they're playing polo.
The brothers' one-upmanship is occasionally set aside for a friendly game of bicycle polo. As children, William and Harry were limited to official appearances at ceremonial events, such as the annual Trooping of the Colour and the Queen's birthday. "14 years later, as a young man, William attended the remembrance ceremony at the cenotaph for the first time. It was an opportunity to witness the Queen's dedication to duty and the respect in which she is held.
She's a real role model. She's just very helpful in any sort of difficulties or problems I might be having.
Even when William was at Eton, he would go and have tea with his granny, and at St Andrews, with him having this small house on the Balmoral estate, there are times obviously when the Queen is up there, and during those times he does make the effort to go and see her.
Sometime this century, this student prince is destined to become king. He will inherit an ancient throne and be called King William V.
The monarchy doesn't have any real power. It's a constitutional monarchy, but I think William would make a wonderful, young, vibrant figurehead for us to look up to.
What will William do next?
I have reservations about everything, and the serious side of that doesn't really need to worry me too much yet.
At St Andrews, William took advice from his tutor, but he's an independent thinker too.
The thing is with me is I look on the brighter side of everything. There's no point being pessimistic or being worried about too many things because, frankly, life's too short. The last thing I want is lots of, people telling me what I want to hear. I'd much rather hear what the reality of it is.
Being an usher at a friend's wedding reminded William that he's duty-bound to marry. Greeting his grandparents at the society wedding of Lady Tamara Grosvenor reminded us that his bride would be a future queen. His uncle, Prince Edward, married career girl Sophie Rhys-Jones. Could this be the type of woman for William?
She was a career woman with her own public relations company before she married into the royal family. And the fact that she was a very modern woman, I think, stood her in good stead. I think that's also the sort of woman that William would go after from what I hear through his friends. Look at what happened with Princess Diana and how she was forced to adapt. It must be a very, very strange world to marry into, but hopefully, given what happened with Diana, whoever marries into the royal family next will be given support and preparation, because I think that sort of role is hugely pressurised.
Lady Tamara Grosvenor, daughter of the wealthy Duke of Westminster and a kind of girl ideally suited for a prince, married William's friend Edward van Cutsem. Edward had been a page boy at the wedding of William's parents in 1981. He and his three brothers are close and reliable friends.
Prince William spends an awful lot of time with them and takes a lot of advice from them, and I think sees them as very, very important influences and great friends.
The Van Cutsem brothers are also close to Prince Harry, who's trying to plan his own future. His experience as a school cadet attracted him to a military career. Unlike his brother, Harry is not set for university. Harry has a place at Sandhurst Academy and will train for army life. But what will William do?
He's hinted that he may well go into the army. He graduates in June. I think he will probably travel a little bit. I think there are still corners of the world that he'd like to see. Harry is actually far more suited to the army career.
But heirs to the throne have traditionally undergone military training. But what does William say about it?
Honestly, I haven't actually set my mind on anything yet. But, there's plenty of possibilities that are open. Sandhurst itself would be a great place to learn how to lead and to, earn respect and just treat, other men and other guys who I'd be looking after with the sort of, ability that I hope I could do.
His days at St Andrews have given him a freedom he's unlikely to experience again. But his romance with Kate Middleton might not last after university.
I don't believe he'll settle down with Kate Middleton. I think that a permanent split is on the cards pretty much as soon as he leaves St Andrews. I think the reason that hasn't come to fruition yet is quite simply because at this crucial time in his schooling, it would just be a massive mistake to have a high-profile split months before his finals.
As much as I've loved St Andrews and I've loved being here and being at university, I am ready now to get out and do different stuff. There's so much I want to do, and I just, it worries me occasionally I won't be able to do it all. but I'll make a good start of it anyway.
William also is at the stage now where he wants to have some fun. His years of having fun are very limited. I think he has a strong impression that it's going to end at the end of St Andrews. I think he'll want to extend that boundary as long as possible.
The young princes already enjoy a hectic social life when they stay in London. Other rich, privileged young people form their private circle. They're mixed with celebrities in some of the capital's most exclusive clubs, such as Bougie's and Pangea.
The cocktails are fabulous and they come in giant fishbowl-sized goblets. I think William's choice of tipple tends to be red wine, although he also enjoys lager. With Harry, he's more of a Red Bull and vodka sort of lad.
Friends supply safe houses for parties, and the princes choose discreet clubs where they hope to evade the paparazzi.
A lot of the time, I think he spends at friends' houses because he's protected and sheltered there. At the end of the evening, they may creep out, William in a baseball cap, to visit the nearby St James's, which has a great bar, and where he would go relatively unrecognised. He has turned up at some of the better-known hotspots, which usually are frequented by his brother, but not so long ago William did turn up at Bougie with friends, and from what people said, had a thoroughly enjoyable night. Bougie is a relatively discreet, small, underground club. It's very dark, it's quite funky, there's a massive waterbed in there and a great little dance floor, and there's a tucked-away area which is where William tends to centre himself with his friends as and when he does go there.
But the press still prove intrusive. It was outside Pangea that Harry got into an unseemly scuffle with a photographer.
They both got this obsession with wanting to be like normal people. They want to do normal things. They want to be able to go out and go to pubs and not be photographed, and go to nightclubs and not have 20 paparazzi waiting outside. But the trouble is, if you're royal, you are not normal. If you have the privilege, you have to have the responsibility, and the responsibility is to behave yourself.
At the moment, it's about having fun in the right places and enjoying myself, and as much as I can, I'm trying to do that.
The opening of the Princess Diana Memorial Fountain by the Queen was a reminder of the loving mother they lost.
The Diana who made such an impact on our lives. Of course, there were difficult times, but memories mellow with the passing of the years. I remember especially the happiness she gave to my 2 grandsons.
I think William and Harry are very close as brothers because they're the only 2 people that really understand what it's like to be them. And I think this draws them together, and the royal family have a habit of discussing problems amongst themselves.
William has the advantage of his height, good looks and his mother's charm. But will these be enough to make him a popular king?
I think he has all the ingredients to become an excellent king, because the thing about William and Harry as well is that they're very normal. They're very much more like us.
Like us, but set apart from us by their heritage, Prince William and Prince Harry are destined to remain the prisoners of celebrity. As their lives unfold, interest in them can only intensify.
August 1997. William and Harry were enjoying their summer holiday with Prince Charles at Balmoral, the Queen's Scottish retreat. Royal homes and estates are part of the heritage they share with Charles and the royal family. Even before their parents' divorce, they had grown accustomed to separate times with their father and mother. Now they were looking forward to seeing her again, but within days, their lives would be altered forever by her tragic death. William William and Harry were left with treasured memories of a wonderful mother. Diana had enriched their childhood with experiences and adventures beyond those of any previous royal generation. The world mourned her passing with an unprecedented outpouring of grief. Millions of comforting tributes helped give William and Harry the courage to face the ordeal of her funeral. Diana's brave young princes walked with pride and dignity behind her coffin on its solemn passage to Westminster Abbey. It was their own decision.
I think it was very interesting on the day of her funeral when they walked so solemnly behind her coffin with their father and their grandfather and their uncle, to see how the younger boy, Harry, in a way carried himself with a great deal more presence and conviction than the older boy, William, whose head was bowed almost virtually throughout, and clearly they both felt it equally. But Harry, the younger one, seems in some ways a tougher character. Also, interestingly, she was very consciously training up Harry, the younger one, as a sort of support system for his brother, because she knew from what she'd seen and herself lived through that life was actually going to be tougher for William. He was going to be the one in the focus the whole time. It would be quite tough for Harry, but he wasn't centre stage. And touchingly, they're very close, those two boys, and I think one thing their mother had achieved, although her work was interrupted, was to make them a mutual bonding, that be able to help each other out in situations like that in the future.
Her children's flowers reminded the watching world of their dreadful loss. There would be no more whitewater rides, trips to theme parks, or holidays in exotic locations. Diana had refused to bring up her sons hidden away in palace nurseries and schoolrooms. She had opened up for them a world unseen by earlier royal children. On visits like this to Niagara Falls, they saw, learned, and explored as Diana prepared them for the duties their royal birth would demand in adult life. The mother who filled their lives with fun also took them on more private journeys, visiting the sick and the disadvantaged, who formed the focus of her charity work and campaigns. She gave William and Harry challenging experiences to offset the wealthy, privileged world of the royal family with its trappings of grandeur. Diana was the most tactile and demonstrative of royal mothers. She missed her sons badly when foreign tours kept them apart. Ignoring protocol, she would run ahead of Prince Charles, unable to contain her delight at being reunited with her boys after the inevitable absences created by royal duties. She once said, "We have an obligation to care for our children, to encourage and guide, nourish and nurture, and to listen with love to their needs in ways which clearly show our children that we value them. They, in turn, will then learn how to value themselves." Charles, too, believed in showing warmth and affection to the children, often publicly. His childhood had been blighted by too many parental absences and by a too rigid and formal nursery schedule. Charles and Diana's obvious love for their boys was not enough to keep the family together. However, the love they received from both parents in the past may prove a sound basis for emotional stability now their mother is gone.
There is no substitute for affection for those children, and I think they've had a really good grounding of it, despite the traumas that they've been through so young. Some people say she almost smothered them when they were little, but because her marriage wasn't working, she put all her emotions and love into those two children. And anyone else that intruded on her space as a mother, she didn't like.
Diana was aware of the royal traditions her sons would grow up with, but she also wanted them to be modern boys, streetwise in appearance. Seen on many happy family outings with their mother, their casual look was in keeping with a more ordinary childhood. When royal duty called, their appearance had to reflect the more formal side of their upbringing. Within their blood runs 1,000 years or more of British royal history. They are the next generation of one of the world's most famous families who have been trained from the cradle to behave well in the public eye. In 1985, they joined their parents on Britannia for a cruise after Charles and Diana had made an official visit to Italy. William, then nearly 3, had already learned how to perform as a junior royal. Harry would follow in his footsteps, but without the pressure of being heir in line to the throne.
Charles used to have a bath with William. There's one lovely story that Diana told about she couldn't find them anywhere, and eventually she went in the bathroom and there they were with all these enormous bubbles everywhere, sort of singing and playing. Charles is like a new man father. I mean, Betty Parsons, who was the midwife who helped Diana with all her prenatal exercises, also used to talk to Prince Charles, and she gave him a book called The Expectant Father, which he devoured. So he was really, really interested and keen, and in fact, so much so it used to irritate Diana. She used to say anyone would think he was having the baby, not me.
Prince William was born on June the 21st, 1982, less than a year after his parents' wedding. Diana was almost 21. His christening in the ornate setting of Buckingham Palace underlined his special position. Diana's natural reaction to calming her agitated son showed her gentle, caring attitude to motherhood. This was not the way of the Windsors, who had usually passed crying babies to their nannies. William's christening was held on the Queen Mother's 82nd birthday to show the link between the 4 royal generations. William was the first royal baby to accompany his parents on a major tour. In April 1983, he went to Australia, where he stayed on a special base with his nanny Barbara Barnes, while Charles and Diana undertook an intensive program of duties.
Well, according to Diana, it was because the Australian Prime Minister invited her to bring her child along, which and she thought that was a wonderful idea, and so did Prince Charles, and so did the Queen, so they took him along. I mean, he wasn't with them all the time. And she also said it was a great help because it gave her something to talk about when she met all the crowds, and she could talk about William and what he was doing, and you know, he was just beginning to crawl. So it was a great bonus.
At first, William didn't mind the photo calls that marked the milestones of his infancy. After his first crawl-about, he was ready for bolder steps. Impish and appealing, he had a natural flair in front of a camera. He seemed to enjoy the attention he received from massed ranks of photographers, recording the footballing skills of a future king. Diana and Charles agreed to these pose sessions, hoping to preserve some privacy at other times. They knew that the public wanted regular updates on William's progress. His first teeth, his early steps and words, his amusing habits of hiding behind doors and of flushing shoes down the lavatory were all dutifully recorded by a watchful press for an eager public. Charles understood the importance of creating a good image for the Waleses, first as a couple, then as a family. Suffering from bulimia, Diana later referred to these early years as the Dark Ages, although publicly there was little evidence of her inner misery.
In the early years of their marriage, I constantly saw the Prince patting Diana, encouraging her, whispering in her ear, telling her she was doing a great job, you know, patting her on the bottom and looking at her. They'd look at each other the way lovers do and laugh and smile at each other, you know, always gazing into each other's eyes. There's no doubt about it. They were a great couple in the beginning.
The summer of 1984 marked a period of relative contentment as they awaited the birth of their second child. Diana knew from her doctors that the baby would be a boy, but she kept Charles in the dark. When Harry was born on September the 15th, Charles was said to be disappointed that his second son wasn't a girl. Behind the glowing pride of a radiant young mother was a troubled princess facing the disintegration of her marriage, just as her family life should have been blessed and happy. Despite their growing friction, Diana tried to share some of her husband's pastimes, making them family occasions for their sons to enjoy. Her affection for her children was always evident. She once said, Hugging has no harmful side effects. If we all play our part in making our children feel valued, the result will be tremendous. William and Harry were introduced early to polo. At these matches, Sarah Ferguson, daughter of his polo manager, was often present. Soon she would become the Duchess of York, mother of their younger cousins, and a loving aunt to the royal princes. William and Harry can look back on many happy times they spent with her and Diana. She may offer a special comfort to them in sharing memories of those lost days. Summers also meant holidays with the Spanish royal family at their Majorcan retreat. The Wales family went there from 1986 to 1988, when Charles and Diana were putting on a show of togetherness to disguise their separate lives and their separate loves. Going to Majorca and missing part of the Balmoral break had been Charles's idea. Although King Juan Carlos and Queen Sofia and their family were warm and hospitable, Diana felt ill at ease. Parental tensions were running high, but the young princes were already adjusting to their situation and their exalted position, where they were constantly photographed and commented on. William and Harry were growing into well-behaved youngsters who knew that princes were expected to be perfect in public.
All the royal children have the most perfect manners. Partly because they have the best choice of nannies to start with. And William, when he was a little boy, I remember Barbara Barnes saying, you know, he used to open doors for women and you know, say sir to gentlemen. That's when he was 8 years old, for goodness sake. They have beautiful manners, and they are very considerate to other people, which is something you perhaps don't get so much in ordinary children.
Of course, there were rare lapses, and the culprit would be quickly and firmly pulled back in line. Diana's boys adapted quickly to school life, starting at a kindergarten where they mixed well with other children. Like their father, both boys showed a talent for the stage. They were allowed to play on Granny's fire engine at Sandringham, in their best clothes. The boys were at ease with their father, even when he was nursing a painful broken arm. There were many endearing moments when Charles welcomed their company and their inquisitiveness. Harry's parents felt that second-born should never mean second best, and Diana called him a complete joy. While William was more tuned into Diana's wavelength, Harry was always very close to Charles.
In a conversation I had with the princess not long before she died in Kensington Palace, she did bring up the question of her concerns for Harry, and that William would always be the one, the centre stage one who was going to be king. She was worried, for instance, rather touchingly, I thought that William would get all the girls. All the girls would go for Wills, and poor Harry, who's only a couple of years younger, would be left out. And so she was already kind of taking steps to try and make sure that they were treated equally, even though in royal standing terms, William would always be number one.
As Charles and Diana grew apart, her sons became her gentlemen escorts for some evening engagements. Diana loved to show off her handsome boys, and they were thrilled to be seen with their glamorous and stylish mother. By now, their royal training enabled them to cope with more adult occasions. Every year, the boys were on display with their royal relatives on the palace balcony to celebrate the Queen's official birthday. The Yorks' first child, Beatrice, enjoyed playing with her cousin Harry. Together with her younger sister Eugenie, they became substitute daughters for Diana. She never had the little girl she wanted, but she resisted the temptation to mollycoddle her sons. Diana encouraged their boyish preferences for sports, such as skiing, go-karting, rafting and swimming. While hunting and shooting remained their father's territory, water sports were provided by a series of sunshine holidays with their mother. Differences between the two boys' personalities began to develop. William was the quieter, more intuitive. Harry, the more mischievous.
Life is going to be much tougher for him than it is for Harry, because he's going to be the future king after his father. He's going to be the centre of attention. And I know Diana worried about that. And she was training up Harry as a kind of support system for his brother. They are very close. Life won't be too easy for Harry either, especially because I think in that period the monarchy's going to be, quotes, modernised, which means very slimmed down. Prince Charles wants it to be just the monarch and his heir. So Harry, unlike some of current royals, probably could go out and get a proper job if he wanted to, and I think the British people would approve of that, and lead a relatively normal life. For William, whatever happens to the monarchy, life is always going to be like it is for his mother. Hounded, harassed, pursued, privately as well as publicly. His misfortune as well as his good fortune being that he looks rather like her, and he's her legacy made flesh.
Their school days were some of the happiest of any royal children. From kindergarten they moved to Wetherby's day school before boarding at Ludgrove. Diana was always present for school sports days. They were timetabled in her diary before any other duties. Whatever the demands on her, or however difficult her private life, she was always ready to cheer on her boys. She was no slouch when it came to the fiercely contested mothers' races, her exercise and fitness routine usually ensuring a royal winner. Win or lose whatever the outcome of the children's races, Diana would always reward them with a cuddle. As a result of her loving approach and her interest in all their activities, her sons felt cherished. More than anything, she believed in the giving and receiving of affection.
I don't think you can spoil children with too much love and attention. I think that's a myth. But I found that she didn't spoil them in terms of being a sensible mother. She was very good at nagging them about their manners. And as a result, they're both beautifully mannered boys and, you know, being tidy, because Diana was fanatically tidy. And so she was always reminding them to pick up things. That's the sort of things that mothers do. I mean, that's normal. To have somebody come along and nag you, I think is keeping you in touch with reality. You know, life is not easy, and you have to learn to look after yourself. And I think she gave a lot of that. She was a very well-balanced mother in that sense.
To achieve her objective of well-adjusted children, Diana allowed them to follow some distinctly non-royal pursuits. Racing buggies in America was considered dangerous and not in keeping with the House of Windsor's constrained attitude to child rearing. Diana was sometimes criticised for lavishing too many treats on her children, too many trips to theme parks or too many expensive holidays. She may have overcompensated for the missing stable domestic background that she had sought to provide and had failed. Diana was also accused of upstaging her husband by her displays of affection and by her action-packed adventures, which made him look a stuffy, uncaring father. These sort of activities were good training for the family firm, as older members privately call the royal family. With the Queen Mother, their great-grandmother, William and Harry behave according to royal tradition. She is a consummate performer, never revealing a trace of her true feelings in public. Diana was wary of the Queen Mother and thought that she exercised too much influence over Charles. However, there were times Diana could not avoid her and had to make polite conversation. The Queen had insisted on taking Harry in hand. His early liveliness was curbed and he was quietly groomed for his eventual role. He soon formed a close relationship with the Queen and also with Prince Philip, gentler and kinder with his grandchildren than with his own children. At Christmas and Easter, the Queen wanted her immediate family around her to celebrate those special days.
The Queen's always played a very important role with William, and Diana told me that William gets on very well with his grandmother, and she was delighted about that. And for the past few years, the Queen has been having tea with William on a Sunday, you know, because he just has to go across the bridge from Eton. So he'll go round to Windsor Castle with his detective, and when he walks in the room, her face lights up and they sit down and they chat about this and that. And she tells him what she's been doing and who she's met. And he tells her, now this is a tradition that the monarch passes down, you know, through the generations, her wisdom. And there was a time when the Queen hardly saw William, so she's delighted to have formed this bond with him. And surprisingly enough, Prince Philip is very close to William too. So he has the great support of his grandparents.
Those family gatherings helped build what Diana called platforms of mutual affection, which will help William and Harry through the inevitable feelings of bereavement and what might have been. The royal family will have to cope with anguish and despair, which may return when triggered by places and events. The boys may turn to their older cousins, Princess Anne's children, Peter and Zara Phillips, who loved their Aunt Diana and also have happy memories of her good humour and her kind heart. But Peter and Zara are different. Much further down the line of succession, they will be allowed to have freedom in their choice of careers, while William and Harry have a narrower path ahead. Their mother, who was such a dynamic force in their lives, had tried to raise her sons in an imaginative way for a new millennium and a new style of monarchy. She wanted them to feel a sense of unity with ordinary people. Now her work will have to be completed by the family she sought to change.
Well, I think she felt that the Windsor family are very isolated, very cut off from real people and real life. And she's right, they are. You know, how often do you see Prince Charles in a supermarket? Does he know the price of a pint of milk? I'm sure he doesn't, and probably doesn't even know how to put petrol in his own car. So she was determined that her boys would not grow up like that. She wanted to keep their feet on the ground. So she used to take them to supermarkets, go shopping, take them to the movies, queue up at McDonald's and at fun fair, you know, leisure parks, all in a desperate attempt to give them some experience of the real world.
Diana's father, the 8th Earl Spencer, died in 1992, robbing William and Harry of an affectionate and down-to-earth grandfather. Diana said, "My father always taught me to treat everyone as an equal. I have always done, and I'm sure that William and Harry are the same." Christmases with their mother came to an end a few years ago, when Diana could no longer stand the strain of being with her estranged husband's family. After the divorce in 1996, there was little contact. With her unique elegance, she had been the star attraction on so many royal occasions. Then she became a semi-detached royal, an awkward situation for everyone, and one that would cause anxiety for her children. Yet it was Diana who instilled much of the basic royal training into her sons. The royal family benefited from her huge popularity, which was also being passed on to William and Harry. She taught them how to behave on walkabouts, how to shake hands, receive flowers, and how to conduct themselves under the spotlight. They simply had to follow her example. Impressing the Commonwealth, such as on this visit to Canada, was all part of the job. There is little doubt that Diana was used to enhance the prestige of modern royalty abroad. She had been the jewel in the crown, a shining, charismatic woman who had made the House of Windsor look stale. She desperately wanted to keep the best of its traditions while bringing it into line with a world ready to enter the 21st century. Diana was grooming her two boys through contact with the crowds who turned out in their thousands to see them. There may have been an element of rivalry with Charles, who never shared the easy rapport his wife did with the public.
You have to remember, because of their tender years, that actually half their lives had been blighted by the public warfare of their parents' very acrimonious divorce. It's tough enough for any kids if their parents split up at that age, but in the case of William and Harry, there was all sorts of public warfare, the dirty linen being hung out a bit too much, friends of Prince Charles, friends of Diana, mutual insults flying in the national press. The schools can say that they hid the newspapers from these boys, but we all know that other school children can be pretty cruel, and it's not always possible to do that. I think both parents, in their different ways, tried to nurse them through each stage, and we know that Diana kept going down to these schools to tell them what was going to happen next before they read it in the papers. But I think it's bound to have left scars on both of them, and it would be surprising if William and Harry, in their different ways, didn't grow up without certain emotional problems that any children who'd been through that at that age would have.
In public, Charles and Diana were obliged to put aside their differences and appear united. However, unity was short-lived, and even when visiting their son's school, Ludgrove, they would travel in different cars. Charles's admission of his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles placed the issue in the public domain. Their relationship may still affect the future of the monarchy.
What I'm told by people close to the prince is that they've never met Camilla. He's always kept those two areas of his life totally separate, partly because he knows the children are aware of Camilla's role in his life and that he didn't wish to give them that additional problem of sorting out how they felt about her, this woman that had intruded into their family. So to prevent them being tortured about it or feeling divided loyalties, you know, torn between their mother and their father, he kept Camilla away from them, and I think that was a very considerate way to behave.
After the Wales' separation in 1992, William and Harry found their out-of-school time divided between both parents. Unlike the Yorks, who remained friends after their marriage breakup, the Waleses rarely met as a family. A pattern developed of one expensive holiday with Diana, followed by one with Charles. Ski trips at upmarket resorts such as Lech in Austria with Diana and Klosters in Switzerland with Charles in the winter would be followed by exclusive Caribbean retreats or cruising on luxurious yachts in the summer. Charles and Diana vied with each other to give their sons the best times, the most fun. It is a picture well known to many children of split families, and it was one that led to suggestions that William and Harry were being spoiled materially.
Well, I think it might appear to us that they're spoiled because they seem to have everything. Very difficult not to. I think any child of divorced parents is spoiled. You can't help it because the father gives them one thing and the mother gives them another. And it sort of almost subconsciously can become a competition.
If they competed for the love of their children, it was like all divorced parents. When holidays come around, they both try to give them great treats. Well, for instance, you know, that is the fantastic advantage of having a broken home. You get 2 lots of presents at Christmas, you get 2 lots of holidays. So it's not all bad, you know. For instance, the last year Diana was alive, the boys went on safari with their father, and shortly afterwards, or around the same time, they went to Barbuda in the Caribbean with their mother. Well, that doesn't sound bad to me.
A private holiday, particularly in a ski resort, soon became a press circus with 3 unwilling performers. To keep the peace, the royal party obliged with some controlled performances. Diana resented the constant intrusion of the paparazzi, keen to make a quick profit from snatched pictures of the princess and her sons. Ominously, Diana found herself in dramas and squabbles with pressmen, which tended to encourage rather than put them off. Situations could get out of hand. The boys, in particular William, dreaded these unseemly scuffles and confrontations.
Sorry. I remember once a terrible fight in the street in Austria when William and Harry were caught right in the middle of it. 2 Italian paparazzi tried to, really get literally right up their noses. It was ridiculous. They're trying to take pictures from this sort of distance. And Diana objected and got very upset, and her policeman rugby tackled one of the photographers to the ground. Well, the 2 boys were standing there watching all this, and they became very concerned, and Diana had to hurry them away back to their hotel. And that was the sort of incident that I don't think they should have witnessed. They shouldn't have seen that. I mean, you can't plan when paparazzi are going to pop out of the woodwork and photograph you, but I think if Diana had taken it very calmly and kept walking, or, you know, stopped and let them get a picture, it would have been a lot easier on the children than having this big confrontation in the street.
Excuse me. Could I ask you to respect my children's space?
Yes, sir.
because I brought the children out here for a holiday. We've had 15 cameras following us today. As a parent, I want to protect the children.
The effect on the boys was different. Harry was less troubled, but he refused to cooperate with the cameras if he sensed William was disturbed. The blood bond between the brothers was already strong, providing each other with an ally at times of stress. At boarding school for much of the year, they wanted to enjoy their time out with each parent without excessive intrusion. William began hiding his face in his hands. He was no longer the little boy who readily played at photo calls, but an anxious teenager needing space and privacy. He found little of either.
He doesn't like the spotlight, hates publicity, hates facing cameramen. And I think that's largely because he saw his mother involved in so many scuffles in the street with photographers, especially foreign ones, continental ones. William's problems with cameramen are so bad now that they've become a serious worry to the Queen. I remember talking to Diana about this once and saying, you know, she said, oh, William doesn't like being photographed. And I said, well, I'm sorry, it goes with the job. If you're going to be a king, you've got to be photographed. She said, oh, you're very hard. And I said, well, I think I'm just being realistic. You know, the sooner William gets accustomed to photographers, the better it's going to be easier for William.
This was advice the Queen Mother would have approved of. Always at ease in public, on her 95th birthday she kept William close by her, perhaps signalling her hopes for the monarchy through the teenage prince. She may have hoped that her confidence would rub off on the sensitive young boy.
Prince Charles decided to drive William back to school. We thought, well, it's not often you get Charles and William together. This is going to be a fantastic picture. And when William had to come out of the clubhouse and kiss his grandmother goodbye and walk out, he walked out backwards so we couldn't see his face. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he guided himself backwards, walking backwards towards the cameras. And then he leapt into the car and hid down in the well of the passenger seat, crouched right down with his, all we could see was his back. I said, oh, William, this is ridiculous, you know, what stupid behaviour for a future king. Anyway, Prince Charles was waving and smiling, and he could have done with some help from his son. If his son had waved and smiled beside him, that would have helped Prince Charles's, you know, poor image quite a bit, but no. So Prince Charles drove off with this ridiculous situation of his son hiding and Prince Charles waving to everybody, and that's how he took him back to school.
Diana included friends of her boys on their holidays and outings. Sometimes she took the children of her staff, another change in royal policy, and one designed to keep William and Harry in touch with the real world. Her own need for freedom and to break away from protocol was evident. She had found palace restrictions suffocating and archaic. Diana was a very modern mother, one whose boundless energy and mischievous sense of humour will be dreadfully missed by her sons. Their young cousins may be an important part in bringing the much-needed element of fun back into William and Harry's lives. Beatrice and Eugenie were close to William and Harry and shared several holidays with them. On this unique occasion, William felt relaxed enough to answer questions with his brother and cousins, giving them moral support, responding to inquiries about their standards of skiing.
Well, improving is very good.
They're improving.
Very good skis.
Richard, sorry, could you ask round here? Sorry.
Behind us.
Rob,
Sorry.
they're not looking at you.
William, do you hope to have a ski together at some stage?
Yes, it'd be good fun. It'd be very good. Enjoy it.
Often criticised for his frequent absences as the boys were growing up, Charles did enjoy many happy times with them. He often forgot his princely dignity to clown around and share the rough and tumble that was denied him in his childhood. Diana once revealed that he loved the nursery routine and came home to bottle feed them as babies. Charles has instilled much of his love of the countryside in his boys. They've helped him with tasks on his farm and gardens. This paternal bond will form the basis to develop Charles's relationship with his sons, now that he has to be both father and mother.
Right, now we should sit here. Now, do you want us to turn around and go back or what?
No, stay here. Friends?
There will still be times when the boys need the guiding feminine touch of an elder sister figure rather than a mother substitute. Charles's friend Tiggy Leg Burke, who comforted them in the terrible days after Diana's death, may provide a gentle female influence to guide them into adult life. William joined Eton College in 1995. It's now a kinder, more supportive school than in days gone by. Charles and Diana were in complete harmony over their sons' schools. Charles chose Eton because he had hated his own school, Gordonston, so much. Eton College was also a place where generations of Diana's family had been educated. It also allows William easy access to nearby Windsor Castle, where the Queen often spends her weekends.
William is exactly like his father, very reserved, very thoughtful, conscientious. You know, he even sounds like his father now that his voice is broken. You'd swear you're listening to Charles. So, you know, he looks like his mother, but he's his father's son. Harry doesn't suffer so much. Harry's rather thick-skinned. He's very like his mother. He quite revels in the spotlight and makes jokes about it. He's got exactly his mother's personality. He's very exuberant, very lively, fun-loving. Nothing phases Harry.
Diana often took the leading role with her elder son. She was guiding him towards his destiny as king. She wanted the monarchy to survive, modernised and in touch with its people, for William to take the throne in adult life. She believed she would never be queen and doubted that Charles would become king. She poured her hopes and ambitions into William.
He was, you know, barely 10 years old when she started revealing how she felt in front of him. And I think as a result, William's matured very fast. He's much more mature than most boys of 15. But that's also perhaps because of the daunting burden that lies ahead of him, the monarchy. And when you're 15, you might want to be a rock star or a nuclear physicist. You don't want your life mapped out for you. Kids of that age want to feel free. All their school friends are talking about, you know, I'm going to backpack around Africa or something, and he doesn't have that choice. It's very sad. I've heard Prince Charles talk about how awful it is to have your whole life mapped out for you, and I know William's a very sensitive boy, and he'll have absorbed a lot of that and think, oh, I've got the same fate awaits me, sitting around waiting for my parent to die so I can become king. Who wants that? You know, it doesn't seem like a real job.
Eton's elitist image belies the fact that it is now a modern school. William's schoolmates are drawn from a wide section of society. They will choose their careers. His was prescribed by his birth.
I think one of the effects of him becoming much closer to his father and perhaps spending much more time with his royal grandparents is that William will be instilled with the same sense of duty that Charles was in his youth and will begin to take the duties very seriously, which is important because you occasionally wonder in a modern age in which we live with a Prime Minister who's pledged to modernise and change Britain, shed the past, shed ceremonial a bit, do unthinkable things, whether William, given that all he's been through, might say in the next few years, who needs this? The people don't seem to want us anymore. We're going into Europe. What's the monarchy's role? It would be very human and people would understand if he said, I don't think I want to do this.
In January 1997, Harry went skiing with Charles, while William preferred to stay out of sight with his grandparents in the peaceful sanctuary of Sandringham. Second-born sons have become monarchs, notably George V and George VI this century. Although history often repeats itself, Charles and Diana wanted Harry raised as a support to his brother. Diana felt that William will come to the throne earlier than many expect. William is being groomed for his burden, while Harry can have more freedom ahead of him.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you. Well, I hope that Harry is left alone by the press to explore life a bit during his youth and early years, and perhaps not to perform the traditional royal role of launching ships and unveiling plaques and living off the state and being a bit miserable, living in the goldfish bowl with strains on whatever marriage he makes. Maybe he could just go out and get a proper job.
William's confirmation in March 1997 was the last occasion the Waleses were together publicly as a family. His proud mother had already taken him to the threshold of adulthood. Through her, he had grown wise beyond his years.
I've heard it said that when she went down to see him at Eton and he heard the scrunch of the tyres on the gravel, he thought, oh God, because she always brought problems with her. She would want to share with him the fact that she was doing that Panorama interview, for instance, or something that she knew was coming up in the newspapers, and it was generally bad news. And I think that was quite tough on William. Harry was really too young, perhaps, to be included in some of that. By the end of her life, the unexpected end of her life, William did seem to have become a kind of senior advisor to his mother. Various big decisions, she told us, were down to him. The decision to surrender her title of Royal Highness without too much fuss, and of course we all thought he'd give it back to her when he became king. Apparently the decision to sell those frocks at auction at Sotheby's in New York this summer was his idea. She credited him with that in the foreword to the manual, the brochure for those frocks. Things like that. And he was still very young, really, to be doing things like that. Maybe it made him mature beyond his years. Maybe it just burdened him with a bit more to worry about than most mid-teenagers already have.
Diana took her sons to the Royal Tournament in London, part of the traditions and pageantry of the House of Windsor. Their friends went too. Diana encouraged friendship. She felt it was vital to have trusted companions. She would have wanted her beloved boys to find the lasting happiness that had eluded her. But who could compete with such a beautiful, loving mother?
And I know he likes blondes. He's always had a yen for blondes, just like his father. So, you know, it's going to be tough, isn't it? I mean, most boys like to get a girl just like their mother was. But for William, is there another girl out there who's, you know, maybe 12 or 13, 14 today, who's going to grow into somebody who's not only as beautiful as Diana, but as compassionate, as warm, have that magic with ordinary people? So, you know, it could be a long search for poor old William.
Let's just hope for both their sakes that those boys are given the freedom to make marriages that really work, find girls that they really care about, who really care about them, who are prepared to put up with all the inconveniences of being royal, as well as the considerable perks and home comforts of being royal, but above all that these marriages don't end in divorce, like their parents, like so many royal marriages recently, because of the strains and because of the people in the House of Windsor being so cold to the people that marry into it. I think Diana's left enough with those boys for that not to be true of them.
Perhaps there is less pressure on William now without his mother around, although it sounds cruel to say it. But I think he's losing more than he's gained. I mean, he's losing that affection that she gave him, the constant support she gave him. She also treated him like a grown-up, which is what every teenager longs for. She'd ask his advice, say, well, William, what do you think about this? Should I do this or shouldn't I? Now, that is very flattering. And she didn't tell him what to do. I mean, Prince Charles is exactly the same. I've heard this for several years now, that whenever they decide that they're going to go somewhere or do something, or there's going to be a photo call, they say, well, we were thinking of doing this, what do you think, William? And they also ask Harry, and they ask for their input.
Childhood's end came with the news of their mother's death. For the rest of their lives, they will have a kaleidoscope of precious recollections, of how good it was to be with her on those thrills and spills adventures, to share the daredevil rides, to be hugged and cuddled, to feel her warmth, her laughter. The end of her life created the beginning of another. The Diana phenomenon was born. Diana's legacy lives on in the remarkable effect she had on the spirit of our age. To change the way millions view their world as she did is a gift granted to very few. Her brother said at her funeral, "Diana was the very essence of compassion, of duty, of style, of beauty. We will feel cheated always that you were taken from us so young, yet we must all learn to be grateful that you came along at all. Your joy for life transmitted wherever you took your smile, and the sparkle of those unforgettable eyes, your boundless energy which you could hardly contain." Outside the gates of Balmoral, William and Harry, supported by the grieving royal family, saw the flowers and read the tributes to Diana. Those touching messages of condolence served as a rehearsal for the overwhelming sights that would greet them at Diana's funeral. Before that sad event, they would return to Kensington Palace, their mother's home, and witness the oceans of flowers left in loving memory of a princess who died too soon. The Queen would make her own tribute to Diana, saying, "I admired and respected her for her energy and her commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her 2 boys. Those boys will lean heavily on the royal family, but as they grow up into men, there may be questions that are hard to answer. How did Diana come to be divorced and all but excluded from the royal fold, although she had fulfilled every possible royal and maternal duty to perfection?" Millions watched the sad procession and emotional service, but no grief was more profound than her sons, the exceptional young men their enigmatic uncle Earl Spencer praised in his fiery address. To others she was an English rose, a people's princess, a queen of hearts, an icon, even a saint. To William and Harry, Diana was simply their mother, and they will never totally get over their loss. Over her coffin, Earl Spencer vowed that Diana's blood family would protect her sons from the excesses of protocol and press harassment. Charles will share his belief that William and Harry should not be totally immersed in duty and tradition, and that their souls should sing openly as Diana planned. He will continue her task of raising their sons to independence and maturity. It will not be easy.
In September 2000, 18-year-old Prince William stepped before the cameras to explain how he was spending the next few months of his life. Attracted by a sense of adventure, he was destined for Chile and the South Atlantic. As captain of his school swimming team, William explains how he got the project off the ground.
I organised a water polo match and got sponsors and basically did the money that way. And I also raised money for a disadvantaged person to come on the expedition with me.
Had his father chipped in?
You might have helped slightly, not very much. So
chip in all the bloody time.
A new chapter in Prince William's life beckons. Spring 1998, a visit to Canada and a time to laugh again. This was the first appearance of the Wales trio. They'd found light after the awful darkness of Diana's death. It was a time for relaxation as they skied the Canadian Rocky Mountains. Charles & Sons were the latest family firm. William, who once hated photo calls, now bantered with reporters. At Balmoral in August 1997, on another photo call just prior to their mother's death, the differences between the two boys' personalities were emerging. Harry was the more impulsive, William already a cautious young man. The living image of his mother, he faces a lifetime of duty.
For William, whatever happens to the monarchy, life is always going to be like it is for his mother. Hounded, harassed, pursued, privately as well as publicly. His misfortune as well as his good fortune being that he looks rather like her, and he's her legacy made flesh.
William faces the trials of youth without the guiding hand of his adoring mother. At the time of her death, her two young sons were only half raised to adult life.
William.
Thank you so much.
At her funeral, they coped with the trauma of her death and the outpouring of public grief. Later, their uncle, Earl Spencer, who shared their walk behind Diana's coffin, said, "My admiration for those boys is beyond bounds. It was the most amazing display of courage I'll ever see." William enjoyed an exceptionally close relationship with his mother. He was her friend and confidant. Her death sealed that bond forever. His thoughts turned to Harry, almost 13 at the time. Claims that Diana and her lover, Dodi Fayed, were assassinated in a Paris car crash have added to her son's grief.
Diana's death was an absolutely tragic accident. It was a basic case of drunken driving. And the Paris authorities and the Paris courts have now given their verdict on that. And it's very, very well documented. He will have gone through this time and time again. If you think that the influences of drugs and alcohol can kill, that's something which I think will sit very, very firmly in Prince William's mind, so that may indeed assist him.
William was already on the threshold of manhood, but Diana's death has brought out qualities of leadership and responsibility in him.
He has become a very strong young man. He was always strong, much stronger than his father, who is rather weak and who tends to blame other people for things that go wrong in his life. William was strong of mind when he was a boy, perhaps even a bit willful. Since his mother died, and particularly with Harry to look after, to oversee, he's assumed an importance which he wears very well. I mean, he happens to be, tall. He's a good-looking chap, very bright. But he changed in becoming a more independent boy, in taking control, in a sense, of the situation. And he was crucial, of course, to Harry's stability.
Shortly after Diana's death, Charles took Prince Harry to South Africa. In Johannesburg, they attended a Spice Girls concert. Harry relished the attention they gave him. It was a time to laugh and smile again, and to let his father join in the fun. South Africa was a long way from Britain in climate and culture. The trip was an opportunity for father and son to relax in a different atmosphere. The tour helped Harry create a geographical and emotional distance from the traumatic events since his mother's death.
He's become far more reflective. There are long periods, I understand, where he is very sort of contemplative in a way that he wasn't before. Well, he's only a young boy. I think all of us who have families and maybe have lost someone close can understand what may be going through his thoughts. Disappointments, he must have periods of unhappiness, but he is quieter and more contemplative than he was before she died.
Like William, Harry can never forget the good times they had with their mother. She introduced them to new people, exciting places, and fresh adventures. A visit to watch a Welsh rugby match, and a chance to drive an army tank in Germany were part of Harry's upbringing. She never wanted second born to mean second best.
In a conversation I had with the princess not long before she died in Kensington Palace, she did bring up the question of her concerns for Harry, in that William would always be the one, the centre stage one who was going to be king. She was worried For instance, rather touchingly, I thought that William would get all the girls. All the girls would go for wills, and poor Harry, who's only a couple of years younger, would be left out. And so she was already kind of taking steps to try and make sure that they were treated equally, even though in royal standing terms, William would always be number one.
Although she would have loved a daughter, Diana threw herself enthusiastically into the role of mother of 2 lively boys. She provided them with the thrills and spills that other children enjoyed. This was nothing like Charles's childhood. They raced each other in Colorado in July 1995 and shot down the slides at Thorpe Park another year. Distant summers of their past with their memories of a gentle and affectionate mother will always be in their hearts. But Diana was accused of upstaging her estranged husband and of spoiling her sons with too many lavish foreign holidays.
In a way, perhaps she spoiled them with treats. I don't think you can spoil children with too much love and attention. I think that's a myth. But I found that she didn't spoil them in terms of being a sensible mother. She was very good at nagging them about their manners. And as a result, they're both beautifully mannered.
Diana also visited hostels for the homeless, such as Centrepoint in London, and talked to the occupants about their problems. She wanted William and Harry to have a social conscience and not lose sight of real life outside palace walls. They visited Centrepoint with her, and William took an early interest in her work for the underprivileged.
She was concerned that they weren't going to grow up spoiled or sort of too much within that tradition. And she used to love taking them to see, you know, the homeless and wear the jeans and just, you know, go down to brass tacks. I mean, she was terribly concerned that they should see that side of life.
She desperately wanted to get them away from the life of privilege, which she knew that they were destined to lead for the rest of their lives. She feared they would grow up like Prince Charles had grown up.
She didn't want them to see reality through the polished windows of a passing limousine. She wanted them to know it as she knew it.
Displays of affection were absent in Prince Charles's childhood. Often separated for months from his mother, he still had to wait his turn for a brief and cool reunion. There could be no greater contrast with Diana. After a brief Canadian tour, she scooped her children into her arms. Charles, too, was more tactile than his parents had been with him. Diana wanted William and Harry to share the experiences other children enjoyed. While Diana believed it was essential for William and Harry to sample life outside castles and palaces, she was criticised for straying too far from traditional patterns of raising royal children.
She was determined that her boys would not grow up like that. She wanted to keep their feet on the ground, so she used to take them to supermarkets, go shopping, take them to the movies, queue up at McDonald's and at fun fair, leisure parks, all in a desperate attempt to give them some experience of the real world.
Sometimes the real world became impossible for Diana and her children. They were simply too famous. In 1993, a private visit to Disney World in Florida was ruined by other tourists who took pictures and made an amateur video of the royal group. Diana resented these intrusions. Even on public engagements, she hated having to run the gauntlet of pushing photographers who closed in on her. She felt hunted and hounded. Scenes like this seem a terrible omen of her last hours. Above all, Diana loathed the media scrum and the battles with paparazzi when she was out with her sons. The constant attention upset them.
I remember a terrible fight in the street in Austria when William and Harry were caught right in the middle of it. 2 Italian paparazzi tried to, really get literally right up their noses. It was ridiculous. They're trying to take pictures from this sort of distance. And Diana objected and got very upset, and her policeman rugby tackled one of the photographers to the ground. Well, the two boys were standing there watching all this, and they became very concerned, and Diana had to hurry them away back to their hotel. Incidents like that, and there have been so many of them, have really traumatised William. Harry doesn't suffer so much. Harry's rather thick-skinned. He's very like his mother. He quite revels in the spotlight and makes jokes about it.
Bodyguards always accompanied the boys on trips, but they were unable to prevent the harassment they received from the paparazzi and sometimes from the public. Unlike other children, William and Harry were always on show. Lines of holidaymakers would stare as if they were exhibits in a zoo. Harry felt uncomfortable. William grew to loathe cameras and would even hide from prying lenses.
William's problems with cameramen are so bad now that they've become a serious worry to the Queen. He doesn't like the spotlight, hates publicity, hates facing cameramen, and I think that's largely because he saw his mother involved in so many scuffles in the street. I remember talking to Diana about this once and saying, you know, she said, oh, William doesn't like being photographed, and I said, well, I'm sorry, it goes with the job. If you're going to be a king, you've got to be photographed. She said, oh, you're very hard. And I said, well, I think I'm just being realistic. You know, the sooner William gets accustomed to photographers, the better it's going to be easier for William.
Diana tried to protect her children from press intrusion, sometimes by taking direct action.
Excuse me. As a parent, could I ask you to respect my children's space?
Yes, no problem at all.
Because I brought the children out here for a holiday.
William doesn't like the cameras because he saw the appalling things it did to his mother. You know, so much is said about Diana and photographers, about photo opportunities being created out of nothing so that she could be photographed. The reality is that she hated being pursued by cameras.
This incident at Malaga Airport in 1994 shows the type of hounding Diana resented and William hated.
William saw this. He sympathised with his mother. He even said to her once, I'll be a policeman when I grow up and I'll look after you. So, again, we are talking here about the teachings of a child. And when a child sees and feels something that powerful when they're young, as William did, it's not a surprise to me that he has grown up feeling an antagonism towards lenses which are looking at him. Hopefully he'll get over it. After all, you know, as an adolescent in moving into manhood, he's going through that rather difficult period. But he does hate cameras. He's going to have to get used to them. They're always going to be there.
In August 1999, William set off for the annual family holiday. Teenage friends were invited as companions for William and Harry. Press reports claimed that William had also invited Camilla to join the royal party aboard the yacht Alexander. Loaned by Prince Charles's friend, the Greek billionaire John Latsis, it's an ideal location for the royal family holiday away from the prying eyes of the hungry press.
But there is no way that the Prince of Wales defers to Camilla for advice on how to raise the children. And in fact, Camilla has made it absolutely clear she wants no part in that. There is a huge constituency out here still of people who feel that the Prince did Diana very badly, and the last thing they want is to see any influence of Camilla over her sons. And although the three get along, which is great, I think they should all get along, she's not consulted in terms of important issues concerning the boys' welfare.
Charles had already publicly stepped out with his longtime mistress earlier in the year. He's determined to have her accepted as his partner, despite speculation that her presence might disrupt the lives of his sons.
I mean, they are socially and privately very comfortable with each other. It's only this whole idea built up by the press, goodness gracious me, you know, the other woman, you know, what's going to happen when the poor princes meet, you know, the wicked witch from Wiltshire, which of course she isn't. So, I mean, it's all a farce. I mean, they get on extremely well together, and they encourage, I think they see that their father's very happy with Camilla, and I mean, she's quite a charming person, you know, in her own right. She's got a great sense of humour, and Camilla Parker Bowles, would know how to make boys of that age laugh. And she'd be funny and jokey with them, and so no problems there at all.
William is often seen as the great hope of the royal family, a point seemingly made by the Queen Mother on her 99th birthday. Fond of Prince Charles, she hopes that William has the charisma and stature to sustain a popular monarchy in the future. At now over 6 feet, William is destined to become the tallest sovereign since King Henry VIII. On Christmas morning at Sandringham, the young prince couldn't help overshadowing the rest of the royal family. Prince Charles often jokes that he's shrinking as his boys are growing. In April 1999, William, his arm in a sling after a sports injury, became a godfather to the grandson of the exiled King Constantine of Greece, a longtime friend of the royal family and a godfather himself to William. His shy, awkward charm reminds observers of the teenage Diana.
One of the problems he has is just like Diana when she was younger. She was rather sort of clumsy when she first came on the public scene. She was tall, probably too tall. And it's awkward for him. He's looking down on most people, including his own father. But he's also he's so self-conscious and shy that in any public place, with or without the press there, he will be looking down in that very sort of Diana-ish way. And it hasn't done him any favours. His deportment is not good. He developed a bit of a stoop, and they had to talk to him about it, try and get him to, you know, look at people and smile. And you'll see that he blushes as well, like Diana always did.
William shared his godparent duties with Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden. At the Greek Orthodox ceremony, they vowed their support for baby Constantine, named after his grandfather who had lost his throne. William was at ease among the other young royals.
He's got that nice sort of self-effacing, very charming, easy manner about him. And he's slightly shy, which girls of a similar age like. I mean, I think that a lot of sort of teenage girls find boys of their own age rather aggressive. They're sort of into what I call the point-scoring thing, you know. And I don't think he's that at all. They like the shyness. They like the fact that, rather like his mother, he looks down sometimes when he talks to you, and he's not too boisterous.
In September 1995, William began the last stage of his school life at Eton College near Windsor. Charles and Diana were agreed on the choice of Eton. Charles had been miserable at Gordonston in Scotland, and they wanted William to have a more enjoyable schooling. At 13, William was already getting into the swing of things.
When he arrived at Eton, he had most enormous sort of photographs of Pamela Anderson with very little on, and other nudes on his walls. And I think his tutor said to him, you know, do you think maybe we could tone this down a bit, you know? So that was very interesting. So he was obviously into girls at a very early age.
The new boy found he liked the Eton regime, even wearing the traditional uniform of long-tailed coat and striped trousers. He made friends with boys from a wide variety of backgrounds and progressed rapidly in his studies. Inevitably, the press thought up stories about his school days.
We all find it quite amusing reading the tabloids at breakfast, as it gives you a chance to see what is supposed to have gone on, all of which we tend to know nothing about. Often I imagine it's made up the night before when there is a shortage of actual news. I'm always amused to read that Prince William is very lucky to have his own room and everyone else stays in dormitories. Well, my experience was I was given my own room right from the start.
Founded in 1440 by King Henry VI, Eton is the most famous English public school. All the men in Diana's family had been educated there, so she was keen for William to follow her family's tradition. Although Diana's own academic achievements were poor, she was keen for her sons to receive the best schooling. William, as the future king, needed a formal education with strong competition.
When he arrived at Eton, well, we knew he was quite bright because he'd passed the entrance exam and we knew he had done well at Ludgrove, his prep school. But Eton's a hothouse these days. You've got to be pretty intelligent and you've got to be quite academic to get on there. And it seems that William is. He did spectacularly well in his O-levels. He's got a dozen or so, all very good grades, his GCSEs. He is doing, as I say, 3 A-levels, and he's determined to get into university on merit. William streets ahead of his father. Prince Charles limped through school at Gordonstoun. Of course, he hated it, loathed every minute of it. He got 1 or 2 respectable qualifications, managed to get into Cambridge with a little help from his friends, I think. William, I think, as I say, will do it on merit. He's up for 3 A-levels. He should pass those fairly comfortably. If he gets some very good grades, there's no reason why he shouldn't actually get into Cambridge and go to his father's old college, Trinity.
With the arrival of Prince William, the school had to increase its security for its most famous pupil. Accommodation had to be provided for William's personal bodyguard. The school and the staff supported William through his parents' divorce and his mother's tragic death. The pastoral care at Eton is provided through the house system. William is cared for by his housemaster, Dr. Gailey, but the headmaster also takes an interest in his studies.
The parents are invited to talk to the headmaster after any chapel service at the weekends. So there is plenty of scope for the parents to talk to their headmaster. Many parents get to know throughout their child's career their housemasters very well and will often ring up, chat to the housemaster, or perhaps come to supper with the housemaster. So they're able to get a very good insight into the child's education and how the child is fitting in. There are certainly no cases I know of where the child being dumped at Eton and left to get on with it.
The choice of Eton attracted charges of elitism. Critics felt that William was being educated in an old-fashioned, class-based system, remarkable for its strange outfits and traditions. But Eton's customs, like the 4th of June, are stoutly defended by its boys.
The 4th of June is the Eton picnic, as it's often called. This is a chance for the parents to come along and see a bit of Eton. There is a cricket match going on, there is the procession of boats where the boys row down the river and wave their hats into the river to allow the flowers to float past in a wonderful procession.
William is a keen sportsman. He enjoys Eton's many activities such as soccer, rugby, tennis, water polo and rowing. He has done well academically, gaining 12 GCSEs. In September 1998, William began his A-level courses in English, geography and the history of art. He is considering a gap year before going to university.
There's talk, isn't there, that he will go to Australia and to Argentina. I can certainly see him going to Australia without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, his father did that, and you see, Prince William is a great swimmer, like his mother. He's a hell of a good swimmer. So all that sort of surfing and, you know, Bondi Beach stuff, that will be right up his street.
William is the captain of Eton's swimming team. He has led them to victory many times, including this triathlon where his team finished 10 minutes ahead of their nearest rivals. Like many young boys from Eton, William has easy access at weekends to the busy social scene in London, where the drug culture dominates. Some people believe that children educated at boarding school away from their parents are more vulnerable to temptation.
I'm not at all in favour of boarding schools because that separates children from a very early age from a nurturing environment. Many of them it's not appropriate for, some of them it is, and they then find themselves in a population where everybody feels much more or less the same sort of sense of loss. And if all of them get a reasonable amount of pocket money, as most of them would do at a private school like Eton, then they have ready access to buy the drugs that would somehow make it up to them for the cut-off from the mother's love.
On state and ceremonial occasions, William and Harry accepted they would be on display. They appeared on Buckingham Palace balcony each June to watch Trooping the Colour with the rest of the royal family. In 1990, they watched the ceremony that commemorated the Battle of Britain, a lengthier test of endurance for the royal children. Honouring the brave was very important to the Queen. Younger royals found such occasions boring. 6-year-old Harry and his 2-year-old cousin Princess Beatrice performed an impromptu quick-step. Diana had to remind him that he was in public. William copied his older cousins, Princess Anne's daughter Zara and her son Peter, who had been drilled in royal etiquette early in life. After church at Easter and Christmas, the royal family were on parade for the crowds and the cameras. Diana felt under pressure to make her lively young boys conform to the standards of the senior royals. As heirs to the throne, she was training William and Harry for public service, showing them how to greet people who had waited hours in the cold to see them. Diana's special touch with ordinary people was a gift her sons have inherited, each in his own way. Harry grew into an impish, adorable child. William grew conscious of his special destiny and was more reserved. There were family examples of dedication to the monarchy all around him. In October 1991, when William was 9 and Harry 7, they accompanied their parents to Canada, their first official visit as a family. Diana had taken the lead in preparing them for this first formal introduction to representing the monarchy abroad. She had no idea that this training would help them respond to public sympathy after her death. Despite images of unity, Charles was distant from his family. Diana and her boys were often apart from him. She tried to make up for his absences.
Diana really loved her boys. Some people say she almost smothered them when they were little. But because her marriage wasn't working, she put all her emotions and love into those 2 children. It's a very common thing. And she used to take them into bed with her, and she'd hug them and kiss them, and they'd sit and watch television with her. And if they were ill, she would go into hospital with them. I mean, she really was a very good mother. And anyone else that intruded on her space as a mother, she didn't like.
As they sailed from Canada on the royal yacht Britannia, the Prince and Princess of Wales were visibly ill at ease. Aboard Britannia 6 years earlier, the story appeared to be a happier one. William and Harry were often formal with Charles and more casual with Diana. They learned to balance the divided lives and different lifestyles of their parents.
Especially at the time of the separation and the divorce, I think as all children do, not wanting to alienate either side. And okay, in some respects they were slightly the go-betweens, and yet they always were very careful not to upset Diana by mentioning things they knew would upset her, and they always said, "Daddy loves you."
William grew attuned to Diana's emotions amid the turmoil of his parents' disintegrating marriage. As years went by, he became her confidant and often comforted her in her distress. Among the royal family are several male role models for William and Harry to look up to. Perhaps the best is Princess Anne's son Peter, a handsome rugby player now studying sports science at university.
They really look up to him as a hero, as an elder brother, and William in particular, and to a certain extent Harry, get on very well with Peter Phillips. And whenever they go to Balmoral, they like Peter Phillips to be there when he can be. just because he's like the big brother that they didn't have, that Wills didn't have, and they look up to him.
Diana was a mother to be proud of. She gave her boys unquestioning love and attention, whatever the problems in her personal life or the demands of her public role. While there were many wonderful trips to expensive locations, she also taught them about the humanitarian causes she campaigned for, including AIDS, leprosy, cancer, and landmine victims. Diana's enemies ridiculed her good intentions, whether in her charity work or with her children. She was frequently accused of courting the media and rivaling her husband with photo opportunities of herself as the better parent. Like all the Queen's grandchildren, William and Harry are the products of a broken home. The sad breakdown of their parents' marriage and subsequent divorce was played out in front of the world's press.
You have to remember, because of their tender years, that actually half their lives had been blighted by the public warfare of their parents' very acrimonious divorce. It's tough enough for any kids if their parents split up at that age, but in the case of William and Harry, there was all sorts of public warfare, the dirty linen being hung out a bit too much, friends of Prince Charles, friends of Diana, mutual insults flying in the national press. The schools can say that they hid the newspapers from these boys, but we all know that other school children can be pretty cruel, and it's not always possible to do that. I think both parents, in their different ways, tried to nurse them through each stage, and we know that Diana kept going down to these schools to tell them what was going to happen next before they read it in the papers. But I think it's bound to have left scars on both of them. And it would be surprising if William and Harry, in their different ways, didn't grow up without certain emotional problems that any children who'd been through that at that age would have.
The tragedy is that Diana is not here to see the mature way in which William and Harry have coped with her own emotional trauma. She would have been proud of her boys. At Diana's funeral, her brother Earl Spencer vowed to protect his nephews.
Your boundless energy, which you could barely... My own and only explanation is that genuine goodness is threatening to those at the opposite end of the moral spectrum.
Charles Spencer is much liked by William, and Charles likes William too, but they're not as close as perhaps both might have wished they could be, principally because Spencer spends most of his year still in southern Africa. Nevertheless, Charles has, I know, dropped into Eton, taken William out to lunch from time to time, and William has been up to Althorpe, Diana's ancestral home, for shooting.
Sadly, William and Harry see little these days of their young cousins, Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice, daughters of Sarah, Duchess of York, now effectively banned from royal circles since her divorce from the Duke of York. Sarah says that senior members of the royal family, such as Prince Charles, regard her as pointless. This has led to a distancing of the two families that were once very close.
It's a shame. Beatrice and Eugenie are their first cousins, Prince Andrew's children, but it all springs from a year or so before their mother, Princess of Wales, died. She and Fergie fell out. They weren't on speaking terms pretty much for the last year of her life, and as a consequence, William and Harry, who had up until that stage regularly spent time with Beatrice and Eugenie, especially at weekends when they would swim at their pool in the summer, just stopped going. And in the last year or two, they've been very little contact except at official royal functions.
In the past, they shared holidays together, such as this ski trip in 1995 to Cloisters, Charles's favourite ski resort. When 4-year-old Eugenie fell in the deep snow, her 12-year-old cousin William was close at hand. This is one of the few occasions when he has readily taken part in a photo call.
How are you enjoying your holidays together?
Fun, thanks.
Enjoying it? It's good. Good fun.
You can turn this way slightly. Maybe this
Well, improving is very good.
They're improving?
Very good skiers.
Richard, sorry, could you ask round here? Sorry. Behind us. Rob, sorry. They're not looking at your side. Sorry. Do you think, can we do something different?
The two boys put the skis down. You think you just...
Yes, it'll be good fun. Very good. enjoy it.
Can you look this way?
You're right, usually. Pictures?
Oh, nice and close together if you can, please.
Both the Queen and Queen Mother have taken a close interest in William's upbringing. He grew up a thoughtful, courteous boy, ready to help others without prompting. Although Diana had difficult relationships with the royal family, she knew that William had to be taught by them for his future role. Whitewater rafting was one of the outdoor activities Diana's sons experienced, in contrast to the more traditional forms of royal pastimes like hunting, shooting and fishing. At home, she took them go-karting, and on holiday in Colorado in 1995, she allowed them to ride quad bikes despite protestations from their father. Since her death, William and Harry have not repeated this type of holiday. William is Harry's protector, especially after he joined him at Eton in 1998. Harry is the tearaway of the family, William the quieter and more traditional one.
He doesn't mother Harry, and I don't think Harry needs mothering either. I mean, Harry's going to be quite a little tiger. Harry's going to be different from William, but I mean, Harry's going to be quite a little tiger in his own right, I think.
Tiggy Legg Burke, their former nanny, has helped William and Harry cope with the shock of their mother's death. She joined Charles's staff in 1993 when he shared custody of the boys with Diana. Sporty and adventurous, Tiggy became a vital part of their lives, but was criticised for allowing them to take part in some dangerous activities, such as abseiling down the side of a dam without protective headgear. Charles was reportedly horrified.
Harry was very firm in defending Tiggy. I mean, his point was, this is what we wanted to do, Papa. Tiggy just happened to be there. The fact that she organised it, provided all the equipment and the soldiers who happened to know their way down that dam and ensured that it was safely done is another thing, of course. But yeah, he was tremendously defensive, especially when he heard that Tiggy was going to get into trouble over it.
When Charles is unavailable, Tiggy Legg Burke takes over. Often described as a nanny, she's from a courtier's family and is more like a big sister to the boys. Diana had resented her.
The public was very anxious while Diana was alive, and I think the public sided with Diana, who always felt that since she didn't need to engage a man to sort of play the role of father when the boys were with her, she never quite understood why Charles needed to engage a woman to play the role of mother when they were with him. However, they do like Tiggy. They like her a lot.
One of Charles's favourite sports is polo. He was an enthusiastic player until injuries limited his performance. He rarely plays now, but would like to see his boys take up the game.
Well, there's no doubt about it that the Prince of Wales would love both his sons to become polo players. I mean, it's a brilliant game anyway. I mean, it is somebody said to me, what a lovely way to have a sweat, and it is, really. It's sort of, I mean, riding horses, the involvement with horses. You've got none of the problems you've got with fox hunting and, you know, the blood sports angle. You're sitting on a horse, hitting a ball, and you've got a nice degree of physical contact with the riding off and you know, the hooking of the sticks. It's a good, strong, manly game, and apart from the fact it's bloody good fun.
Reluctantly, Diana took her boys to watch Charles on the polo field. She found the game boring, like most of her husband's interests, but realised that her sons felt differently. They enjoyed the whole polo experience. William has gone on to take lessons himself. He now owns his own polo pony and has a real aptitude for the sport.
William and Harry have been given sort of private lessons, sort of not quite behind closed doors, but without anybody watching them. And both of them enjoy the game. The problem, the major problem that William is going to have, of course, is he's left-handed. And of course there are no left-handed polo players in the world. You know, when you line up, you've got to line up right hand to right hand. and which is quite obvious because otherwise people would kill each other. What you're talking about in polo is swinging the stick. You've got to get that whole swing and the swing of the shoulders. So he is going to have to switch his whole body balance from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. That'll be difficult for him.
Princes are expected to have a military career. Charles was in the Navy, but William has shown an interest in the army.
He's doing very, very well in the combined cadet force at Eton. I understand that he won the Sash of Honour last year, which was for the most outstanding sort of young cadet, soldier cadet of his year at Eton. So that's a big thing. He's going to be a soldier prince. And there's this big talk, and I'm sure this is right, that he's going to go into the Welsh Guards. That will be obvious, because when his father becomes king, he will be the next Prince of Wales, so he'd have to go in the Welsh Guards. So that would make a lot of sense. Good regiment, nice regiment.
The night before Diana's funeral, William and Harry had prayed beside her coffin with their family and with leaders of the Landmine Survivors Network with whom she'd recently visited Bosnia. William and Harry chose to walk behind the coffin. Earl Spencer commented, "My admiration for those boys is beyond bounds. It was the most amazing display of courage I'll ever see." In his eulogy to Diana from Westminster Abbey, he swore the Spencer family would protect them.
And the sparkle in those unforgettable eyes, your boundless energy.
He pledged that Diana's blood family would continue the way she was rearing her sons, so that they were not simply immersed in duty and tradition.
Bearing in mind what Earl Spencer said at the Abbey in that very contentious and rather bitter speech about the blood family looking over the upbringing of the boys, one would have expected them to see more of William and Harry. They don't, and one of the reasons, undoubtedly, is that what Earl Spencer said upset Prince Charles because it called into question his abilities as a father. Most fathers don't need another family, albeit the in-law family, to say, we shall be watching you, we shall be watching you. And it was a very unfortunate choice of words that he used.
Diana went home to Althorp, the Spencer family estate. She was buried on a tranquil island in a lake within the park of her ancestral home. Flowers were taken to her grave and scattered so that they will reseed and grow again. Her brother chose the island as her final resting place so that William and Harry would be able to visit her graveside in privacy. On Mother's Day, they sent flowers there. Earl Spencer opened Althorp and its Diana Museum to the public for 2 months a year. Diana's will had given the Spencer family the moral authority to help guide William and Harry to maturity. But the boys remained closer to their father than their uncle. In her final years, Diana and her brother had not been close.
They hadn't really seen eye to eye for quite a long time. They'd had their ups and downs, and the families didn't really meet very frequently in a year. So Charles Spencer's family and his children hardly knew William and Harry, as a result of which it is definitely known that the boys do want to be with their father on all occasions now. I mean, they go to Highgrove to see him when they can, and throughout the holidays they want to be with him. Also remember that Charles has deliberately gone out of his way to have his diary cleared for school holidays so he can spend as much time with the boys as he can.
The other woman in their lives is Camilla Parker Bowles, whom Diana blamed for the breakdown of her marriage. Public opinion is still divided over her acceptance as Charles's partner.
She's brought up 2 children of her own. One suspects he asks her advice from time to time about things. In the recent years, in the crucial, recent, difficult years, when the boys were growing up and when it became clear, even to them, that they could not avoid knowing about the existence of this lady.
In July 1998, it emerged that William had agreed to meet Camilla. Charles had recognized the maturity in his elder son.
Only recently, in fact, has Charles had any form of formal discussion about the situation with William. William's attitude was, whatever makes you happy, Papa.
The Queen Mother shares the Queen's pride in Diana's boys. William in particular has grown close to the Queen, who has identified in her grandson the qualities required to make a fine king.
Whether William, given that all he's been through, might say in the next few years, who needs this? The people don't seem to want us anymore. We're going into Europe. What's the monarchy's role? It would be very human and people would understand if he said, I don't think I want to do this.
Can Diana's sons hope for personal happiness after their great loss?
Let's just hope for both their sakes that those boys are given the freedom to make marriages that really work, find girls that they really care about, who really care about them, who are prepared to put up with all the inconveniences of being royal, as well as the considerable perks and home comforts of being royal, but above all that these marriages don't end in divorce, like their parents, like so many royal marriages recently, because of the strains and because of the people in the House of Windsor being so cold to the people that marry into it. I think Diana's left enough with those boys for that not to be true of them.
As the years go by without her, Diana's sons will draw on her legacy of love and her caring for others. Earl Spencer said, Diana brought to their lives something quite different and wonderful. With Prince Charles's help, they will build on her foundation, making a more secure monarchy for the future. Diana's efforts will not have been in vain.